Call this regular meeting of the San Marcos City Council to order. Today is Tuesday, December 16th, 2025. The time is 6 p.m. Mr. Trevino, let's see who's here.
Ms. Rodriguez.
Here.
Mr. Saul Gonzalez.
Here.
Ms. Garza.
Here.
Mayor Houston.
Here.
Mr. Scott.
Here.
Mr. Mendoza.
Here.
Mr. Lorenzo Gonzalez.
Here.
We have a quorum present.
Okay, and our invocation this evening is being given by the Reverend Sheila Sidbury Thomas, who joins us from Wesley Chapel AMEC.
Good evening. Let us pray. To the God of hope and promise, during this Advent season, we pause to reflect and prepare, not only for what is to come, but for how we are called to serve today. As we wait with hope, unite this council and the members of this city in purpose and mutual respect. Where there's division, foster understanding. Where there's uncertainty, offer clarity and wisdom. Lord, we pray for the safety of this city, asking for protection for our first responders, our public servants, and everyone who works to safeguard and serve this community. Encourage decisions that promote peace, justice, and the health of all neighborhoods, not just the privileged. As budgets and resource decisions are evaluated, guide the council to be responsible stewards, balancing immediate needs with long-term responsibility and ensuring that compassion and fairness influence their choices. In this season of expectation, help the City of San Marcos leadership reflect light, hope, and integrity in their work. May their work serve the common good and strengthen the bonds that holds this community together. In the Lord's name we pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Next is our pledges of allegiance to the United States and of Texas. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to Texas, one state, under God, one, indivisible. Next up is our citizen comment time period. City Council will hear citizen comments at regular meetings, work sessions, and workshops. Those wishing to speak will note that there is a sign-up process. For those of you online, when it's almost your turn, there's going to be a pop-up question on your screen, and you must answer that in order to be able to speak and turn on your video when you're called upon. You may speak once during the citizen comment time period, may not yield time to others. If you speak now about a public hearing topic, I ask that you not repeat exactly the same comments again. You'll have 3 minutes to speak after you state your name. A timer is displayed on the screen. You'll start in the green bar. When you have less than 20 seconds left, the timer will be in the yellow and there'll be a little ping sound. When the timer is red, your time to speak is up and a bell will ring loudly. If you hear a popping sound, step back a little from the microphone. The mayor and council will endeavor to ensure that meetings are conducted in a courteous manner and in an atmosphere free of defamation, intimidation, personal insults, profanity, or threats of violence. If you do any of those, you're going to hear the gavel, and I will ask you to leave the council chambers. This is your warning. We have 18 people signed up this evening, so I'm going to call 5 names at a time. If you're in council chambers, please make your way in from the lobby or the middle of the back row, wherever it might take you a while to get here. The first 5 will be John Mayberry, Michael Whalen, Virginia Partner, Ana Juarez, and Sam Young. John Mayberry, it is now your turn.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. John Mayberry, 2505 Alston Lane, Austin, Texas.
I'm the applicant for the property at 900 Francis Harris. It's been about a year since we first came before you to present the data center project that we have planned for this site. Since that time, a lot has changed. Notably, we have listened to feedback from council, staff, and the community. And I need to say here that I commend this community and everyone in it for being so engaged and thoughtful in their suggestions on how to make this project better. And it is better. We've spent the last year fielding every question thrown at us, and we continue to move this project through the public process, staying inside the city limits and not seeking out a private subcommittee. The product of all this dialogue is the legally binding accountability that is enshrined in the proposed restrictive covenant, a draft copy of which is in front of you. This document will regulate the development of the data center inside city limits. Mr. Whalen will give more details on the specifics of the restrictive covenant and its enforceability. One of the questions that came up last week at Planning and Zoning centered around the monitoring of these commitments. And we are committed to working with city legal staff and code enforcement to make sure that these commitments have clear monitoring mechanisms. Another question that came up at Planning and Zoning last week was about the sources of Crystal Clear's water. That's our water provider. My response was that Crystal Clear will provide water from their existing contracted and permitted water rights, and that is true. Crystal Clear has further indicated that they will be providing from the best available source, and that may not always be the same source. I went on to say that I was almost positive that the water for the data center was not coming from the aquifer or the river, and that I needed to double check on that particular fact. Based on Crystal Clear's response, that could be true, but it would be more accurate if I just stated their water sources are as follows, and this is from their annual report. The Canyon Regional Water Authority, Lake Dunlap, the Canyon Region Water Authority, Hayes Caldwell Water Treatment Plant, which treats the San Marcos River, the Canyon Region Water Authority Wells Ranch, Springs Hill Special Utility District, and 2 wells in New Braunfels that provide groundwater from the Edwards Aquifer. These are permitted and purchased water rights in specific amounts that serve their customers in new development, and not one additional drop of water can be used for my project or any other project beyond these permitted amounts. On the flip side, all of this contracted water will be fully utilized by this project or by others. The victory for water conservation here is that we are already contracted for 150,000 gallons per day with Crystal Clear and are voluntarily surrendering half of these water rights back into the system. From a regulatory standpoint, Crystal Clear, just like San Marcos, is obligated by the PUC to serve inside of its service area, and they establish that service through contracts called service agreements. The TCEQ monitors this service, and every water district that violates either their obligation or their permitted rights can lose their certificate. I'm here tonight to answer any further questions, and if I can't answer them, I will have them ready for you next time. Ultimately, you have before you a huge opportunity for the people of San Marcos. It's a rare project that provides large numbers of jobs, a huge boost to the tax base, strict environmental regulations, and minimal impact on city resources. Thank you.
Our next speaker is
Michael Whalen, 100 Congress Avenue, Austin, Texas. On behalf of the applicant, speaking in favor of the Francis Harris Lane cases. As John indicated, we've been before this body before, and we've committed to you that we would listen and work to address people's concerns, and that's exactly what we've done. We've prepared a binding enforceable restrictive covenant that reflects feedback from council, staff, and stakeholders. We heard concerns about water use. The covenant explicitly cuts the approved water use for this property by more than half. We heard concerns about drainage. The covenant commits us to providing stormwater runoff that is 10% better than the current code, and to impervious cover that is 10 percentage points lower than otherwise allowed in LI zoning. We heard concerns about sustainability. The covenant commits us to pursue LEED certification, and I want to also inform you that we have already registered the project under the most up-to-date version of LEED. We've heard concerns about noise. The covenant commits us to a flat 75 decibel level limit throughout the day, which is 10 decibels below what the city requires during the day. We heard concerns about labor standards, and the covenant specifically outlines labor expectations. We heard questions about energy use and infrastructure, and we have now hired some of the top experts around to advise on these issues. I have worked specifically to identify ways in which all of these covenants can be enforced, and ultimately the threat of an injunction, which is explicitly provided for, is the biggest threat for a data center that is required to remain online and operational 24 hours a day. It would be catastrophic if a court enjoined the data center as a result of a violation of the restrictive covenant. This is ultimately the hammer of accountability. You also will have accountability during the site plan process. We're here with solutions. As you know, the property is currently zoned in the city for, and had been planned for, a large, nearly 500-unit subdivision. This site is uniquely positioned at the edge of the city, directly next to an existing power plant where major infrastructure already converges. Natural gas, fiber, and utility connections are all established at this location. From both an engineering and planning perspective, it is hard to imagine a more appropriate place for a facility of this nature. It is not in a floodplain or in a residential area. Because the property is right next to a power plant, a data center would serve as a light industrial buffer to the adjacent heavy industrial power plant. A data center on the edge of the city would generate significant new recurring property tax revenues without requiring emergency services or parks investments or other such city services. In other words, this is the right project for the site with key protections that reflect city and community feedback. I'm available if there are any outstanding questions related to this proposal or the restrictive covenant that you have before you, and thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Our next speaker is Virginia Parker. I think she said earlier she couldn't be here at 6, so I'm going to move on. Ana Juarez, who is joining us online.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to provide a little bit of an update on some of the things that have been happening at San Pedro. We started over a year ago trying to replace our historic pillars and the fence that we had, which kept falling over. And as we did that, we realized that we did not actually know where our exact property boundaries were, and so couldn't complete that work. So long story short, in July, we were able to get a property survey, and the survey showed that we had additional land that extended on both the Posey Road and the Bastrop Highway side that were up to like 5 or 6 feet beyond where our current fence is. So because of the erosion and because of the different boundaries and stuff, we went ahead and got an engineering report. I sent that to you earlier today. And I did have a meeting with the city, some of the city engineers, Will Rubley and some of the city engineers earlier to talk about some of the issues that we're having with drainage and erosion on the Posey Road side. It looks like based on that meeting, the engineers were going to verify, but they believe that the city's easement may encroach partially on our boundary on the Posey Road side. So, we're kind of looking at that. But I just wanted to make sure that y'all knew about that. I look forward to hearing very soon back from the city engineers. And I want to also let you know that we will want to work with the village at Posey Road on this. I have consulted with them, and the engineers, our engineering firm, recommended some improvements to their drainage projects. And so we have briefly discussed that with them, and hope that we can move forward and fix some of these things so that we can get our historic pillars and a new fence installed soon. So just wanted to let you know. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Sam Young. Following him will be Tori, in this order: Tori Martin, Abigail Lindsay, Jennifer Lindsay, Gina Fleming, and Maxfield Baker. Several of them are joining us online. Sam Young.
Good evening. My name is Sam Young. I started coming to council meetings when Israel first came up, and then a meeting that the fire marshal had to attend to control the crowd. Then the data center, flock, and then the night that myself and one other citizen were left at the end. Most times there are more staff than citizens. Now, I learned each meeting, and I have talked with others in the community. Yes, I live in Kissing Tree. Kissing Tree residents have been called wealthy and affluent. Almost all of us started work about 14 or 15 and then worked for 50 or more years. And we're familiar with many life issues. KT is not an enemy. And this is FYI, not a brag. My wife and I have paid $14,155.78 in city property taxes since we moved here. We have skin in the game just like you and other taxpayers. I also realize that a quarter of the population of San Marcos is at or below the poverty level. Something must be done to reduce that percentage. It can't be done with just social justice. The city needs strong business development and better paying jobs. It seems that investor, developer, outside money are curse words to many. The tax base has to be broadened. No cannot be the first reaction to any investor. Now, this may be a rumor, but I was made aware that an investor cannot talk with more than 3 council members outside the meeting because of public meeting interpretation. Seems like they ought to be able to talk to all 6 members, maybe 1 or 2 at a time, for information and background for projects so that all members are informed and any official decisions are made in a public hearing. Moving on, Texas State has become a large university. It is a major employer. The city has to cooperate with and work more with the university. The university has money, resources, and programs that can be used to improve the city for all residents, not just students. In July, Texas State will become a member of the Pac-12. San Marcos is going to have lots of those teams' visitors coming here that otherwise would not be here. They need to see a flourishing city. Maybe investors from California, Oregon, and Washington might want to invest here if they see if there's a willingness of locals to listen. Now is not the time to be provincial. Merry Christmas, and may San Marcos have a great new year. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Tori Martin.
Tori Martin. I just knew I'd get to see you guys before Christmas, so I could wish y'all a Merry Christmas. I'm really disappointed to be up here again so soon. I'm not surprised in the slightest, and I'm very tired. I'm sure you're tired too. I'm sure you're tired of hearing about how much I care about my home and that this would ruin my community. I'm sure you guys don't think about me, but all I do is think about you. I'm tired of spending my last 10 months trying to fight for a life that almost all of y'all are trying to take away from me. And that you can't even look at me and talk to me. It upsets me that y'all voted against our way of life so quickly and carelessly and couldn't even justify it. It's very unfair to me that I have to stand up here because this man made a bad deal. And now it's the entire community's problem. He bought this land to build homes, and nobody wanted to build homes there. He didn't have success with that, and that's why we are here today. So don't let him threaten you with homes that don't exist and that they're going to use more water than a data center. Who knows if those homes would even exist if you denied this? And if you think those homes would use less water and power than a data center, you are out of your mind and haven't been paying attention and doing your own due diligence. You do understand that the power plant uses water that comes from the Edwards Aquifer. It's still going to be using massive amounts of water. It's just presented to you in a different package. So I have to stand up here and try to convince you to care more about cows and grass versus money and machines, and let's be real, it's not going too well for me. And the fact that y'all clearly want this and the fact that you're so eager to jump on a bandwagon that's brand new and that you don't understand and hardly know anything about blows my mind. I've said it before, don't let San Marcos be a warning sign for other cities. There is already now enough warning signs and evidence out there. We shouldn't need any more information to understand how harmful data centers are. You are not asking questions. I don't get to do that. I don't get the luxury. I have to sit down and keep quiet other than these 3 minutes. And you are not getting the answers from who it truly counts, Cyrus One, who ran away at confrontation. They need to be answering these questions. We as the neighbors haven't had them answers. Yet you talk to John Mayberry like he holds the key to all of our problems, and as if this has been very clear and transparent. He is a very, very well-educated man, but he isn't a data center and doesn't own a data center. He's just regurgitating some content to tell y'all. and somehow you're satisfied with these vague answers, it's perplexing to me. If this was your backyard, you would have so many questions. There's so much proof that the good does not outweigh the bad in this situation, and that there is now enough examples in other cities that this is destroying people, and you're willing to do that to your own citizens for money so quickly. It's coming off beyond careless to me and many of your other citizens. He says he's talked to the neighborhood commission out there, and all 25 of my neighbors that I've talked to have no idea what he's talking about, and we haven't spoken to
Your time is
him.
up.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Abigail Lindsay. She's online.
Hello, yeah, I'm trying to get my video, I'm sorry.
Okay.
You have to have that.
Your
Yeah,
3
it's not
minutes
working.
starts when you state your name.
Okay, hold on 1 second, sorry about this.
There you are.
Okay, sorry about that. Yes, I'm here, sorry. Hold on just 1 second, I apologize. I'm just getting emotional. Yes, it's Abigail Lindsay, 308 Valley Acres Drive, New Braunfels. That is in Hayes County. There are so many things I want to say about this proposed data center. You will hear from consultants hired by Highlander as to why this is good for our community. I want to point out they are being paid to say these things. All of our utility rates will increase because of data centers, not just this one. Every Texan will pay more every year. They will tell you this is not the case, and that is a lie. If you do just a little research, the truth is out there about utility rates increasing because of data centers. It's happening here in Texas and other states. It's simple, supply and demand. With more demand on the grid, prices go up. Texas has about 429 data centers, making it second only to North Virginia. According to Bloomberg, wholesale electricity costs as much as 267% more than it did 5 years ago, and it's being passed on to customers. ERCOT pays data centers to shut down during peak demand or when the grid is stressed. Also, data centers can apply with the Texas Comptroller for an exemption for the state sales tax of 6.25% for 10 to 15 years. Data centers will never pay their fair share. They will use our water and our electricity, pollute the air with the backup generators, light pollution, and sound. The tax revenue you think you might see will not be there for at least 5 years. The buildings will need to be complete before you see the full effect of their appraised value, and who knows, they might drag that on for years. Meanwhile, the land has ag wildlife exemption. Mr. Mayberry does have a contract with Crystal Clear SUD for homes. He does not have a contract for the data center. He will have to reapply for a contract for water with Crystal Clear SUD. Where is Cyrus One? Why are they not here to answer your questions? Every person here speaking in favor of this data center will have nothing to do with building it or working there. You're speaking to the middleman. The restricted covenants is not going to help. Who will be monitoring it? If they are out of compliance, who will enforce it, and what are the consequences? How is that going to work? On December 12th, President Trump signed an executive order, and I quote, "United States companies must be free to innovate without cumbersome regulation." What he's basically saying is that he will take away any state or city regulations in regards to data centers. You will not have a say in the matter. The restricted covenants will be taken away. This information, I hope, terrifies you. You will be stripped of any say in this matter. Deny this once it comes up for a vote. Please listen to those of us speaking out against this. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jennifer Lindsay. I do not see her online. Okay, I'll circle back. Our next speaker online is Gina Fleming.
My camera doesn't work. Can I still speak?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Gina Fleming, and I wanted to speak briefly on 2 items. The first one is number 8, Resolution 2025-238R, on whether to support the nomination to the National Register of Historic Places of the Thompson Cape Dam and Milled Race. I'm opposed to that. I don't, as far as I know, a decision hasn't been made on whether to remove that or not, and this seems more like a ruse to force preservation of the dam. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the Francis Harris Lane Data Center, and I'm reiterating what others have said, in that I attended the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting last week, and I was very disappointed to see all the questions addressed to Mr. Mabry and David Swank, who works for Project Management Advisors in Dallas, whom he had apparently hired to come speak to answer their questions. As far as I know, David Swank has no relationship to CyrusOne. I was shocked to read in the paper that the CyrusOne actually informed council last August that they were removing themselves, like explicitly removing themselves from the rezoning process after a quote, contentious public hearing left many community members upset at the data center developers. They said at that time that they would come back prepared to answer our questions. And I don't understand. If they're not here, they're not here. Mr. Mabry is a real estate developer. He can't, we can't hold him to anything he says about restrictive covenants that are supposed to apply to CyrusOne, or, well, I guess he could maybe if that follows the property, but we can't hold him to other things about jobs and energy usage and water usage. So I don't understand why we continue to address questions to him. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Our next speaker, after Maxfield Baker, in this order will be Laura Benavides, Brandon Oles, Diane Wozniak, Zane Porterfield, and Crispy Polanco. Maxfield Baker, you're next.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Okay. So yeah, to start, personally, I oppose the Capes Dam being added to the historic register, or at least if you are going to move forward with that it tells the full story that includes and highlights that people were enslaved by the people that generated, the wealth and economic resources and everything from there. And that also I ask that if you do move forward with that you clarify that it would not stop the removal of the dam in case that is what is preferred by not only the community, but by science and engineering, et cetera. Personally, I also oppose the data centers for many of the reasons people have said before, and the mountains of evidence that continue to pour in against them. Especially as the other speaker pointed out, this looming executive order, this could just override any of the promises that they're making to you. And this is something I've really put forward since the beginning as it relates to these restrictive covenants potentially being false promises. Not to mention that our only way to enforce it, as the developer themselves said, is through injunction, which he's basically saying, yeah, if you want to stop us, spend more taxpayer money to do that. Oh, guess what? You'll be recouped because it'll go through anyway. The state of Texas is going to favor a business in an injunction like that. The Trump administration is going to favor something like that. So we would just waste a bunch of money that then I guess we would make back from the money they're going to give us from their development. So all of that aside, that's all personal opinion. Personally, or rather for the rest of this, I'm going to talk about the San Marcos Civics Club. Hooray, we're celebrating 2 years as an organization. We've had 24 meetings. Ta-da, we did it. Our last meeting is going to be this coming Monday, December the 22nd at Tantra per usual from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. and that's on a Monday. We are going to start talking about our goals for next year. And our main goal is actually going to be creating a city council environmental scorecard, giving all of you beautiful elected officials a score of A through F for how you vote on things that relate to the environment, to make sure that we have some real accountability as it relates to the votes that are cast and development, things like the data center. Our focus on the environment came from the result of our reasons not to vote rally kind of election. And in there, we decided we're really going to focus on this and create some more accountability. We're also looking to better understand the payment in lieu of parkland aspect of our land development code. We would appreciate potentially hearing from the city of San Marcos as it relates to that and look forward to sending you some correspondence. Lastly, we're trying to work on bike infrastructure, safety, and utilization. And so if there are groups currently working in this space, we want to help support you and bring awareness and action related to policies that might make biking infrastructure more accessible, safe, and better utilized by the community. So we hope to see you all at our meeting on Monday. Our next meeting will be January 26th. Night.
Our next speaker is Laura Benavides.
Hello, my name's Laura Benavides. I am the proud owner of Private Park here in town. I am also a member of the Post-Concussive Syndrome Club. It's not a fun club. I don't recommend it. And as a member of this club for the last 10 months, I have been requesting clear, concise, written communication. And that's something that I haven't received from several departments within the city of San Marcos in the last 7 months. The few minutes that I'm allowed here really isn't enough to go over everything that I have been dealing with for the last year and a half. I do have public record requests. They're not fully released, but some of the things that I have received are incredibly concerning. As a longtime resident, business owner, the sole provider for my family, the things that I'm hearing from my fellow community members is scary. I have firsthand knowledge in the years, more than the decade that I spent in the insurance industry, firsthand knowledge, seeing what corporate greed does to people. As of right now, my properties, I own 3 properties in town. They border Purgatory Creek. They are part of the hiking trails that will be coming in. That's going to connect Austin to San Antonio. I'm right smack in the middle. I would love a collaborative effort to see what my properties will look like as part of these hiking trails. And the collaboration just hasn't been there. In June, I was a part of a meeting incredibly unprecedented. I have never been a part of an unprofessional meeting in my life. As part of being in the insurance industry, mitigating risks, understanding that we need to keep records of everything, and professionalism is absolutely something that I understand. Now, when Shanna O'Brien states at the end of that meeting, we're actually in contact with the city's attorneys trying to find a way to shut you down, that stopped me mid-sentence. My head exploded. I became an elite member of this post-concussive syndrome club. I am unable to move forward without the answers that I have been requesting for the last several months. So, in hindsight, I am requesting for a formal due process to challenge the violation that was issued on part of my properties and my home. And I would also like an independent investigation to establish a pattern of behavior for Shanna O'Brien, considering that I will be going back 9 years to establish my pattern of behavior and addressing all the lies about me. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Our next speaker is Brendan Oles. There he is.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council. My name is Brandon Oles, and I stand before each and every one of you today as a humble resident of the city of San Marcos and as an assistant project manager for one of the largest general contractors in the state of Texas. And I want to talk about the data center. Granted, I recognize tonight it's just a presentation, but I also recognize that at some point a decision is going to have to be made. Before that happens, I simply ask that you consider something. Consider that this is San Marcos. Consider that we have Texas State University, 40,000 students that travel from all over God's green earth to go to school here, spend money here. Consider that people travel from all over this great nation and greater state to spend one night on the square, one day on the river. We got money coming in. It needs to be managed better. We got money coming in. So like Buda, we don't have to say yes to every development that comes knocking on our door. Heck, we got the Buc-ee's being built that's going to be catching people driving through. That's a new source of outside incomes, can provide new jobs, good quality jobs, like Chick-fil-A level jobs. So that being said, I'm not against development. I just don't think development should ever come at the expense of our people. I think if we welcome development into our community, it needs to benefit our people and assure that San Marcos is a place we are proud to call home, and this data center is not that. At last week's meeting, a question was asked of Mr. Mayberry's representative. The question was simple. Will the power demand of this data center have a negative impact on the city of San Marcos and its people? You'll notice that several responses were given, none of them direct, every one of them circular, every one of them divisive and generic. Every single one of them. Because the truth is, as someone who has read specs and drawings of data centers being built here in Central Texas, I will tell you right now, our electrical infrastructure is not prepared for the power demand of this data center. During my campaign, I had a chance to talk to some of the people in various neighborhoods around San Marcos. I learned that there are several neighborhoods that already suffer from regular blackouts. That out there, where Ms. Torrey lives, or where they're trying to build, they have regular brownouts. So it is my hope that this development will be turned away in hopes of reinforcing our electrical infrastructure. That way we as a city can comfortably and confidently welcome development into our city without sacrificing the quality of life of our people. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Diane Wasnick.
My name is Diane Wasnick, and I am a resident of San Marcos. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you tonight. I wanted to give you a little background on the Capes Dam issue because I was the executive director of the River Foundation 6 years ago and on back, and was there when the property was donated to the San Marcos River Foundation that adjoins Capes Dam. And I feel that maybe I don't know all of you council people, and it may be that some of you don't know facts because you've been hearing such wild stories about what is needed as far as rebuilding the dam. And I think that first you need to understand that the River Foundation hired the best survey person to do gradient boundary type surveys on rivers in the state. It is the person who Texas Parks and Wildlife uses. And he established, and it's quite apparent, that the dam rests on our property, one side of it, and there is a large earthen reinforcing what to me looks like a flying buttress on a building that holds the dam in place. And it is entirely on our property, the River Foundation property. And so you can't apply for landmark processes at the Historical Commission without having the agreement of the landowner. And the landowner was not even talked to in this case. And so if you are going to send in a letter to the Historical Commission, which I actually think you ought to postpone because you have studies underway that we hope will confirm what the eminent scientists have already established, and that is that the dam is very bad for the river and its inhabitants, including the endangered species. So the dam needs to be removed as the council decided to do 10 years ago with the advice of U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and with thorough studies by one of the most eminent water scientists in the country. Probably he's nationally and internationally known. And so I urge you to not leap into just designating the dam as a historical area. There's already one historical marker in the area, the Thompson's Island that Catherine Rich wrote up many years ago. And there are many artifacts and pieces left of the original irrigation system. Some are on the Smurf property. The area needs to be looked at as a whole before y'all do something like this, which was set up for y'all only because the people that are doing that want to put roadblocks in the way of dam removal.
And your time is up.
So please consider these things. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Zane Porterfield.
Good evening, everyone. Zane Porterfield, 1898 Creek Road in Dripping Springs. I'm here tonight because I work for the Watershed Association, so it's my job to really understand water governance. I also know a lot about utilities and rate cases and ground and surface water interactions. But I'm here in particular because I was at P&Z the other night. As John Mayberry said earlier, he made some statements regarding groundwater that were a little bit iffy, and I thought I would come here tonight to sort of give you the information that I have in relationship with where Crystal Clear Special Utility District gets their water and whether or not that impacts the city of San Marcos. So to begin, I just looked at the Barton Springs Edwards Conservation District Management Plan. It was completed in 2022 and it runs through 2027. It says every major water utility user, where they're sourcing their future water and when the demands will go up. I want to note that this is from 2022. So the documents in here and also the documents through LCRA do not factor in data centers. At the time, they included a little asterisk saying data centers are not currently a problem, so they're not factored into this plan. So things have changed pretty rapidly since then in terms of demand, so we're going to be off on those numbers. But it's looking like, in terms of projected water management strategies, where is Crystal Clear going to get its water up until 2040? Crystal Clear will be almost entirely reliant on Alliance Water Pipeline from the Carrizo Aquifer to expand supply, and they will not get that water until around 2040 when Phase 2 is complete. So for the next 15 years or so, Crystal Clear is going to be reliant on those grandfathered-in wells and a surface supply that is actually stagnating. They really don't have any more surface rights. It's going down every year. Meanwhile, their projected water supply needs, this is without data center demand, is looking at, by 2040, negative 40 acre feet. So that's, even though they'll get that Phase 2 pipeline by 2040, they will still be in the red 40 acre feet with current demand projections of 2022. So it also looks like their surface water will be null. There's no more surface water to go around. So I think it's worth considering that City Council should talk to Crystal Clear Water Supply about whether or not they feel pressured by their complex duties to provide service within their CCN, because Crystal Clear cannot deny service, right? That would be a takings case. They could be sued for that. It's up to City Council to help manage their water strategy, and because City Council is a stakeholder in Alliance Water, any further demand on the Alliance Water system needs to be balanced with I would say great balance, because ultimately expansion of the Alliance Water System does affect rates in San Marcos pretty profoundly now and forever, seeing as that's our future water supply. Secondarily, I want to talk about PEC and rates. Pedernales Electric Co-op is a pretty huge system, but they get about 65% of their electricity from the LCRA, and they're actually in a contract until 2040 to provide that 65%. I'm almost out of time, but...
You are out of time.
Sorry about that.
Our next speaker is Crispy Polanco. Following Crispy Polanco will be Freddie, Bobby Levinsky, and Saunders Drucker.
So yeah, Crispy Polanco. To say that Crispy's feeling a little salty tonight is a little bit of an understatement. Because we're here talking about the data centers again, and it was only a couple months ago that we had that vote that technically failed because of a technicality. It wasn't denied as the council twisted itself in knots to establish that night, almost immediately after the vote. And it's because of that my ire tonight is pretty much directed at the council. I mean, I could direct it at Mayberry, who has claimed he's had the water from Crystal Clear when really his contract was for houses and not a data center. And I believe he was informed of that earlier this month at the board meeting, that he needs to get a contract for a data center. That may be a foregone conclusion, but still, he lied. His lawyer, Wayland, which, by the way, there was a new Predator movie released recently, if anybody wants to know where the name Wayland comes from. He says the restrictive covenant is the most effective way to hold them on a leash when, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, one is more effective, or two is more effective than one, but, you know, great. It's not a 10 or even an 8 or 9. The community hasn't come out to voice concerns to make the deal better. We've come out to say that we don't want this. That people that live adjacent to the property do not want this. Tori has come up here time after time and cried in front of you, and almost the entire council has ignored her completely. And then you have the nerve to cut her off sharply when her time is up, while you let the lady from the River Foundation come up here and go a little bit over her time before you politely tell her that her time is up. What is this? If we only get 3 minutes to speak up here, while you guys can sit up there all night and ask irrelevant questions and speak a bunch of nonsense stuff that has nothing to do with the matter at hand, like whether or not you've done enough for the community and mental health reasons when we're talking about flock cameras, as if you're warm and fuzzies about what you've done for the city really matters in the conversation. So there's my time. It's almost up, but I'd like to remind most of the people on the council, I've heard that maybe the mayor won't be rerunning again, but I'm pretty sure at some time, your time of the dais is gonna be up.
Our next speaker is Cy Freedy. Freedy. Okay, Cy Freedy. This project has been stalled for at least 9 months because of steadfast grassroots opposition. Since the first delivery of the developer's advertisement, we have learned a lot, and everything we've learned has only added to the long list of reasons to reject this project. And we're learning new things every day, and growing our collective power every day. The data center build-out is not inevitable, and in some places, elected officials are actually listening to their communities and putting moratoria on new data center construction. Also, y'all should know that in most of the United States, data centers are not zoned light industrial. Let's be real. I'm gonna get a little vehement, so. Who does this serve? This is mission-critical infrastructure for the ruling class to further consolidate their wealth and power, to further erode any vestiges of democracy. This infrastructure is for mass surveillance and genocide. It is for the bigoted algorithms that make life or death decisions about denying people health coverage and parole. So here we have a developer who is threatening to violate the land and our collective will one way or another, and let's get a little bit more creative in our imagination of what this could look like. Nobody here is under oath, so y'all have the words of those who stand to profit, which have been largely evasive non-answers and outright lies, against the really candid outcry of your community. So Mayberry aims to construct a monstrosity which is operated by CyrusOne, owned by the largest shadow bank in the world, BlackRock. Every day it would waste 5 times as much electricity as the entire city of San Marcos uses and steal about 7 million gallons of water from some Texas communities. That's Energy Water Nexus. We've learned that in the last 9 months, y'all. Okay. Data centers create 1 permanent job for every $2 million of tax breaks that they get, and they last maybe 10 to 15 years. So Mayberry has feigned to be a good faith actor, touting his restrictive covenant, which we know is not all that restrictive, and neither is it enforceable. Y'all are presented with his fake promises against our diligent research, and this is not an appropriate format for this kind of dialogue we need to be having as a community. Please be checking your email. We will be hosting a town hall in the next month. We need to have a more democratic format for this kind of conversation. There are people in this room who know a lot more about the harms and impacts of data centers than John Mayberry does. Zane Porterfield is one of those people, and we expect you to listen to us. Thank you. Our next speaker is Bobby Levinsky.
Hello, council members. Bobby Levinsky, 248 Camaro Way. I want to say thank you to Councilmember Saul for your service, and then I agree with Diane Wasnick and echo her call to postpone the item on the dam. I want to speak, though, about the data centers. I'm going to finish Zane's speech and then hopefully get to a couple things I want to say. Mayberry is hired in someone that worked for LCRA for many years ago, but we should just listen to what the current general manager has to say about the severity of demand on the system. The PEC has a contract with the LCRA that extends to 2040, in which LCRA supplies 65% of PEC's electricity. In February, you city council members were invited to the Hayes County Infrastructure Summit. Current general manager, LCRA, Phil Wilson, expressed genuine concern about the demand on LCRA. He taught Zane that one data center in Comal County would be equal to 100,000 homes in their system. LCRA's power will be getting more and more expensive, and the PEC, as a distributor, has no problem selling this expensive power to us. Because these utilities have complex obligations to provide, city councils must take the time to consult with experts and maybe even advisory council before making a decision. I want to now speak about the water slides that are on your agendas. So there's a lot of comparisons between single-family homes and data centers. Again, single-family homes cannot be curtailed. And I'm not aware of any population projection adjustments that we're making into our water supply demands. These are homes that we're still going to need in the city of San Marcos, so they'll be going elsewhere. A data center does not offset the single-family homes. And then also, when you're thinking about the water demands from these data centers, if each one of them were 75,000 gallons per day, you have 4 in this area. The only one that we can legitimately stop is the one we have any authority over. That would be this one, the one that has zoning authority. So if you're looking at the ability to reduce the amount of water for data center cooling and then preserve the water for our residents, this is our one opportunity here. It's our best opportunity to do that. And then I want to do some other comparisons for single-family homes. These single-family homes are within the state's water demand projections. Data centers are not. Each single-family home has an average taxable value of $350,000, and each one of those will pay San Marcos sales taxes. Water for people should always matter more than water for Fortune 100 companies. So to me, what's at stake is the water. And there's a ton of different uses that you can use on that site that aren't data centers. I agree with the comments that single family probably is not appropriate next to a power plant, but you could do warehouses. You could do a number of other uses that are not a data center. It is not an either or scenario. You have options. Please consider them. Thank you.
And our last speaker is Saunders Drucker.
Hi, my name is Saunders Drucker. I am an ecologist, a licensed environmental consultant, and endangered species biologist, so I have a focus on this. You've heard from their proposals several times this term, mission-critical infrastructure, applied to the data center proposal. They use it because they want you to believe that building this center is like building a highway or some sort of needed water treatment facility, something that is necessary at the proposed cost to the environment, but it's not. The proposed data center addresses no need of the community, but it demands an awful cost in power and water. It will never house our data. We don't need it, we won't use it. So if it is mission critical, then whose mission is it critical to? It is critical to the mission of wealthy companies that have heard that they can generate an awful amount of wealth for themselves by building a big computer room somewhere with cheap land prices. Let's not act like this is restricted to the San Marcos area. Across the country right now, towns are having this same fight. I only have 3 minutes, but if you ever want to, you can come talk to me and we can sit down and do a Google search of what happens with towns and data centers, and you'll see that there's endless examples of only 2 types of stories. Either towns that are organizing to fight data centers and say, no, we don't want you here, or towns that are dealing with the negative repercussions to their environment, people, community, and health. Once a data center moves in, all over the country, people are fighting these things. No one wants one, no one needs one. They spend millions of dollars on advertisements and proposals to convince you that these things are in your interest. Millions of dollars to fight grassroots movements like ours because they know that nobody in their right mind would say yes to these things. They will brag about their restrictive covenants and greenwash their power and water usage, but there is no amount of water that they can use that justifies such a useless development. They can reduce it all they want, but it doesn't make sense to build this data center. There's no need for it in our community, and we should say no to it. There's nothing about it that justifies the massive grid added to the Texas energy grid, which they just recently said could not handle the winter demands by added data centers, and they're going to have to use our tax money to expand the grid like crazy. You are all in a place of absolute power where you can decide what kind of headlines we're going to read about San Marcos 10 years from now. Either one where we stood up and said no to these things, or one where we are dealing with the negative ramifications of it, like Bend, Oregon, where they are discovering new types of cancers thanks to an Amazon data center. Thank you.
And that concludes the citizen comment portion of our program. We are to the consent agenda now. The following ordinances, resolutions, and other items numbered 1 through 7 may be acted upon by one motion, no separate discussion unless a council member chooses to pull it from the consent agenda. Council, is there anything you wish to pull from the consent agenda? Yeah, I don't have any tonight.
Mayor, not pull, but just make a statement about, or I'm gonna separately vote on 5.
You just
I know
wanna
it's a second reading.
Enter a separate vote?
Yeah, and if
Okay,
I
we
can
do
get a
that.
moment to explain
But if you
rationale
want to keep
briefly.
talking about it, just pull it.
Okay. It would be a brief rationale, just given my
Then we're
first
gonna-
vote.
Then we will pull item
Yeah.
5. Did you say?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Then item 5 has been pulled, and we will address that in just a moment because we don't have any public hearings tonight. Anything else, council? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the rest of the consent agenda, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Mendoza. I need a second. I have one from Mr. Scott. And Ms. Trevino is going to set us up to a push-button vote. Mr. Gonzalez?
The motion passes 7-0.
Okay, usually we take the pulled ones after a public hearing. We don't have a public hearing tonight, therefore we will talk about item 5 now. Ms. Trevino?
Consider approval of ordinance 2025-53 on the second of 2 readings, increasing the speed limit from 60 miles per hour to 65 miles per hour on northbound and southbound FM 110 from approximately south of Yarrenton Road to north of State Highway 80, authorizing installation of signs and traffic control devices reflecting the new speed limits, directing that the traffic register maintained under section 82.067 of the San Marcos City Code be amended to reflect the new speed limits and penalties to be applied, including procedural provisions, and declare an effective date.
All right, I need a motion and a second to start conversation.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Scott, seconded by Mr. Mendoza. Ms. Rodriguez?
Sabas, is it Avila or Avili?
Avila.
Avila, okay, I just wanted to make sure. Let me ask you a quick question. When it comes to approving this with TxDOT, is something, like, are we in a position where we have to approve it to get something, or is it just a recommendation more than anything?
No, ma'am, it is not a requirement that we approve this. FM 110 is a state roadway. As a matter of course, the Texas Department of Transportation brings these speed limit changes to the jurisdiction or to the city jurisdiction that this facility resides in. If the city chooses not to approve, TxDOT can approve through their Transportation Commission.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't want to take too much time. It's just the vote I took last time around might seem small or silly to some people, but it stuck with me. And so I wanted to pull it to change that vote to a no and sort of give my rationale. There's been a couple items that we've done on council that sort of have stuck in my mind as I thought about my vote, such as the rerouting of our non-hazardous materials to that road, so larger trucks could be going there at higher rates. It is currently a two-way road, so there's already general safety concerns I have with that. Additional development that we're also doing out there. I remember there was a decision about manufactured homes a while back, and one of the questions I asked at that time was the left turn and visibility, and so, yeah, it was just general safety concerns, and I wasn't really comfortable with the vote I took, and so this is just a matter of correcting that before passages. So, that was it.
Okay. Anything else from anybody? If not, we will vote, and I don't know what happened to Mr. Gonzalez. Oh, here he is. We're voting on item 5. We will wait.
The motion passes 5-2.
All right, so that item is concluded, and we are on to item 8.
Consider approval of Resolution 2025-238R, whether to support the nomination to the National Register of Historic Places of Thompson, Cape Dam, and Millrace, San Marcos, Hays County, Texas, including procedural provisions, and declare an effective date.
Motion to approve. Second.
I'm sorry, that came from?
I'm sorry, second?
No, I'm looking for who made the motion. That was Mr. Scott, okay. Okay, who's got the background on this? Ms. Reyes, where do we start? I can start with how we got here, but,
Yes, Ms. Brake is going to take it, and then Ms. Case is here for any questions.
all right.
Yes, good evening, council members. Allison Brake, I'm the Historic Preservation Officer. A little bit about the National Register of Historic Places. It's an honorary designation that's authorized by the National Historic Preservation Act of 1966. It doesn't restrict private property owners unless there's federal funding or permits involved. Sometimes our local ordinances may place some restrictions on National Register designated places, like our local demolition review for historic resources. From this point in my presentation, I'm just going to call it the National Register. So anyone can submit a nomination to the State Office of Historic Preservation, often called the SHPO, for review. That in Texas is the Texas Historical Commission. If there is federal funding involved in a project that includes a site or a structure that's on the National Register, that designation does not stop a federally funded project. However, it does allow the state office, Texas Historical Commission, to work with any stakeholders or agencies that are involved to identify and address any concerns during the planning phase of the project. So it allows for mitigation, which will hopefully then avoid delays or any kind of conflicts. To be considered eligible for listing, a property must meet the National Register criteria for evaluation, which involves reviewing the site or structure's age. So is it 50 years or older? Looking at its integrity, does it still look like it did in the past? And is there significance? So to determine significance, you're looking at 4 general criteria, and that is whether or not the property is associated with events, those events that are important or have contributed significantly to the broad pattern of history. Is the property associated with people or the lives of people significant to the past? Is there some sort of distinctive design or construction that this site embodies? And does it have the ability to yield, or has it yielded information that's important to prehistory, which is the archaeological aspect? Next slide. In November, the Texas Historical Commission notified the city that a valid nomination to the National Register for the Thompson Cape Dam and Millrace was submitted by the statewide nonprofit Preservation Texas. The site was determined eligible by their staff for designation and has been reviewed by the Texas Historical Commission staff. It will be considered for listing by the State Board of Review at their January 17th, 2026 meeting in Austin, Texas. The letter that the city received stated that as a participant in the Certified Local Government Program, which we've been a member of since 1990, that the Local Preservation Review Commission and the chief elected official for San Marcos are required to separately notify the THC's National Register and Certified Local Government Program offices as to their opinions in regard to the nomination. And those comments are required no later than Friday, January 16th. Next slide. The item was discussed at the December 4th Historic Preservation Commission meeting, and the commission expressed that while they believe the dam qualifies as historic, they do have some concerns regarding the dam's integrity. So they were concerned that the dam did not really include much of the original material. There were also concerns raised regarding the boundary and whether or not all property owners were not notified by the state. Next slide. Following the Historic Preservation Commission meeting, planning staff did meet with the Texas Historical Commission, National Register, and Certified Local Government staff to discuss this nomination. The Texas Historic Commission explained that this is a functionally related property with component parts that all work together as a whole industrial complex. So in National Register terms, you can think of this as, they categorize it as one contributing site with significant features, and the dam is one piece of that. The THC staff did clarify that a recommendation from both the chief elected official as well as the Historic Preservation Commission is preferred, and that recommendation should be based on whether or not the property meets the National Register criteria. And following that consultation, staff determined that the best course of action would be to take this item back to the Historic Preservation Commission on January 8th in order to receive their formal recommendation. Next slide. So looking at the National Register nomination form, there is a statement of significance which states that the site is being nominated at the local level of significance under that criterion A in the area of industry. So that's the events criteria. And criterion C in the area of engineering, again, the construction design criterion, for its pivotal role in the commercial and industrial development of San Marcos from 1850 to 1942. Next slide. So tonight, council has the option to support the nomination. If council does not support or chooses not to support the nomination, the THC's preferred approach would be for the council to recommend that the property not be nominated at this time. The letter conveying council's action does not need to include extensive detail, but it can simply state that that council is not recommending nomination at this time, but welcomes the opportunity for the item to be considered in the future. Staff will provide the Historic Preservation Commission action after their January 8th meeting, as well as City Council's action to the Texas Historic Commission by January 16th in order for these comments to be forwarded with the nomination to the State Board of Review meeting in Austin. Again, that is a public meeting on Saturday, January 17th. That concludes my presentation, but I'm available if you have questions.
Council?
I have a ton of questions, but we're going to start with this one. Now, is it our policy to advise whoever lives within the 400 feet about the name change, like a zoning case?
It's not a name change.
Or, no, to put the new plaque, put that plaque in, I'm sorry.
National Register.
Yeah.
Well, this is a state notification. So we were notified because we are property owners of the land. So it's in its public review period, and the state provides the letters that go out in the same way that we would provide a letter for a zoning change. But this is not a city request.
How about the land adjacent to that? I think San Marcos River Foundation.
Well, let's back up. We did not do the nomination. It came
Right.
from an outside agency.
Okay. And I'm sorry, but still, does it require that outside agency to notify the
Correct.
adjacent people?
Yeah, if there are boundary disputes, it would be prudent for the nonprofit organization for Smurfs to reach out and provide those comments to the Texas Historical Commission. We can get them that information for them to provide that information to the THC.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions at this time?
For now, that's all I have. Thank
I
you.
can come back around. The notification that's in the packet, and did you get one also, I
Yes, ma'am.
think? And is yours in the packet also?
I don't
I
know
don't
if the
think
one
so.
in the packet is, but I do.
But here's the deal, it looks to me like the one that's addressed to me is addressed to me as the whatever local, elected local official.
Correct.
Was there also one, and I assume the one that went to you was because you're the historic preservation officer?
Yes, ma'am.
Where's the letter that, do we know, did anybody get, Ms. Reyes? Did anybody get one that we got because we're one of the property owners?
I'm not aware of that, Allison. Did we get one because of the property
I
owners?
I don't know who it would have gone to, but it looks, what I'm thinking is they didn't notify any of the property owners. But this came from the THC. Should that have come from the nominator?
No, ma'am, it would have been through the THC because it is their process. The
But how would they know?
It's just like they would have, when they have a sheet that they have to identify the property owners and then send their notices to.
Okay.
Mayor, in
Yes,
talking
sir.
with San Marcos River Foundation, they indicated they did not receive a letter.
I know, I've heard that. My thought is, it looks like neither one of us got one as the property owner. So that's odd. In addition, just in case anybody from the THC is listening, this isn't a whole lot of time for us to respond, because we don't have another meeting before this is due. This is our only opportunity, and I was hoping the HPC would have a recommendation for us at their meeting, but they didn't feel like they had enough information, and I get it, but.
And I just looked back in my email and we did, there was one received on November the 19th. That was emailed to me on the 20th, but it's addressed to dear property owner.
So we did get
It's the
another.
same letter, but it says dear property owner.
So they didn't send it to you as HPO, they sent it to you.
They didn't send it to me. I think, I
Oh.
believe it, they sent it to the city managers. I think it.
But it was
came
sent to
from-
the city.
It was sent to the
Correct,
city.
it was
Okay.
sent to the city.
Okay, so we did get notified that way.
Yes.
Okay, so we've got this one, and this is putting us in a real bind. And I just don't see a lot of data other than all the photographs and the captions in the nomination regarding this. So is not sending a letter going to be interpreted as we're against it?
That,
I mean, that's,
I
from
don't-
the things that you had earlier, that's kind of what it sounded like, and there's not a way to, I understand that y'all asked to see if this could be postponed and considered.
Correct.
Is it quarterly that they meet?
Right, they meet in January, May, and September, and staff reached out to the applicant to see if they would be willing to postpone it so that we could take it back through, but they wanted to move forward with
They said no.
the January meeting,
Okay, so
correct.
we can't ask that be postponed. Only the applicant can.
I believe we could, right, only the applicant can ask for the process to be postponed. That could
Okay.
be something that is incorporated into the letter that is provided to the THC, that there wasn't enough time, or, whatever the comments tonight are, we can formulate that into a letter that goes to them.
Yeah.
And there would be two separate letters then? One from
Correct, there would be
HPC?
one from HPC.
What if there are two different thoughts and they're representing the city?
that's-
So that's a little.
So if
That's
there's,
maybe
squirrely
awkward.
to me also, to say we want one from each?
that is my understanding of the process, yes.
The-
One,
they- What I seem to recall from the package is that they do ask for both the recommendation of the property owner and the Historic Preservation Commission, but their recommendation is not binding, of course, on the city. It's their recommendation.
Wait, so you're saying that it's the HPC that they want to hear from?
the letter states that the there should be a recommendation from sorry.
Yeah, here, I'm just going to read that paragraph, hang on. As a participant in the CLG program, the local Historic Preservation Review Commission Board Committee and the chief elected official for San Marcos is required to separately notify the THC's National Register and CLG program offices as to their opinions in regard to the nomination, and the date for this one is Friday, January 16th. So they're to write a letter, but this says the chief elected official, it doesn't say the property owner in the letter that I have,
That's
Mr. Gary.
correct, and we actually talked about that, Ms. Brake and I talked about that last week, and I think they want to see the letter come under your signature, but what I talked about with Ms. Brake is that it wouldn't be typical for you to do that on your own without the support of your council. So in my view, council has to be the...
Say that again?
Just like other letters sometimes you're asked to sign, you would not typically send a letter expressing support for some sort of policy position without the support of your council.
That's why it's on our
So
agenda.
the thing the reason it says that it's from the chief elected official, or but you're not going to do it without the backing of the council. So
But
I'm
that
saying it'll
wasn't-
be under your signature, though.
Right, that wasn't the point I was making, though. This says chief elected official, not property owner.
That's correct.
Mayor, I think the difference here is that as property owners, we're required to make some, or they're requesting some feedback. But the other letter addresses the fact that this structure is within our city, and as a Texas Certified Local Government Program participant,
Right.
that it is incumbent upon us, due to our membership in that program, that we must provide a certification from both the board and from the highest elected official. And if you read further in that letter, it says, compliance with the provisions of the CLG program is a state and federal obligation that could jeopardize the city's CLG status if compliance is not met.
Yeah, and it's underlined here, so.
If I could clarify one a little bit further too, I think here's where the confusion lies is, more often than not, I think some of the buildings that are nominated are privately owned or not owned by the city. And they're saying that even if it's somebody else's building, they want the city to weigh in. In this instance, it just happens to be that it's the city's building that's being nominated, and so you're kind of serving in both roles. The council has to weigh in as the property owner, but as the chief elected official, you have to send the letter under your signature because it's our building.
The thing that's confusing to me,
yeah.
Sam, is really a process question, because typically the mayor and council appoint, obviously, the HPC as a recommending body to them. And in this case, it looks like council's being asked to do something, and then HPC's being asked to do something in parallel. And so council's not getting the benefit of the recommendation coming to them from the HPC to consider that in whatever they do. So that's
Right.
where I feel like that's a confusing part. And so the process part, but I don't know if that's our process or if that's something that's been
Well,
prescribed by THC.
I think where the kind of the misstep occurred is that the HPC should have probably made its recommendation at the last meeting, and for whatever reason it did not. And I think for that reason, it's just it's equally valid for the council to say we want that recommendation before acting. There's not an obligation that we support the nomination. I think what they would, if what they will take it as, the city's probably not supporting it if they don't have
That's what I'm afraid of.
an affirmative vote from the council. So,
And the thing that
and they'll
Mr.
give whatever weight they
Right,
want.
and the thing that Mr. Metallian just read, are we reading that as a certified local government, we really have an obligation to respond and to provide information on this, and we don't want to lose that status? Doesn't say what kind of response they want, they just want a response. But yeah, I looked at that and thought, okay, something is happening in our city, and they want us to weigh in on it. That's the way I read this letter from the get-go.
Correct.
And of course, I'd want HPC's recommendation.
And I think that's a valid response, is that one response is that there may be opinions now that you may want to vote for or against, but the other option could be is we feel ill-equipped to provide that response until we hear from the HPC, and that's our response for the moment.
Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
I do feel that way. I mean, I think it was mentioned, commemoration is one thing, and I don't see us, disagreeing that there may be something worth commemorating. I'd also have some general, first of all, preface it with, feels so incredibly rushed. I went back and watched the committee's discussion. I think I even got that
commission?
same impression. Mhm.
Yeah, I watched it too.
I got that same impression from that committee that it felt rushed. And I also would just have a general question. So this draft of detailing the history, is our recommendation based off of this draft? Is this their application that we're talking about?
Correct. So that would,
Okay.
does this nomination, provide enough information to meet one or more of the National Register criteria, which is those A, B, C, or D?
Okay.
Is
See,
it
in that-
one, or, I know it doesn't have to meet all four, does it just have to meet one?
Right, just one or more.
Okay, so one of those is kind of like that old plaque, George Washington's left here?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which, of the different criteria, I get that, that all makes sense to me. The reason I asked that question, though, is I went through that entire draft and just had some general concerns around, I didn't realize that, and this is just my ignorance, I didn't realize the mill race and the wasteway was literally hand excavated by people who were enslaved. And so when we talk about, there's just some really interesting takes found throughout this entire application, really essentially arguing that had it not been for white settlers, the land and its people would have been living in destitute. And that's a very familiar and harmful lie that I've seen quite often. And so I would love to kind of better understand how we're better telling that story rather than just picking little pieces of it and throwing it in this application, especially if we're writing it as a city on behalf of this. So just given the rush nature of it, I mean, I'm sort of leaning towards a postponement.
We can't just postpone it because we don't meet again before that deadline.
Well, I think I did understand, though, that in response to
You could say the
whomever-
letter can include
Yes,
that,
and
but we can't
That's what I'm saying,
request a
though, is
postponement.
in that letter, sort of acknowledging that part.
Yeah,
And like I said, just in general, it just feels incredibly rushed.
Well, I don't think anybody's arguing that one.
Yeah.
So, looking to see what council's looking, it looks like we do need to do a letter. I think we can acknowledge, yes, it's historic. I think that perhaps we ought to include that as, if they're asking us to, speak as a property owner. I'm trying to get Ms. Brake's attention.
Sorry, yes. ma'am.
Should we comment that the other property owner, that there is another property owner?
That, I think you can. My assumption is that one of the letters also went to Texas Parks and Wildlife, because as the other a property owner, and then if there's a
Because the
boundary.
river?
And if there's a boundary dispute, then I would urge.
Yeah,
Smurf
and I'm not
to-
suggesting we talk about where the lines are exactly, but it's a dam and a river, a navigatable waterway, and we're on one side and the River Foundation is on the other, and that's as far as I would suggest that we go, is, not sending them meets and bounds or anything. But I think we know those three things, so we can include that. So who's taking the notes on what goes in the letter?
Staff is. Mayor, could I, to help council refine their response, ask Allison just to summarize what they heard when they met with the THC staff on this question as far as, what decisions are they expecting or what feedback are they expecting from the COG?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Just real
I thought
short.
we already had that, but yes, I would love to hear that.
Sure. Are you at our meeting with THC? When we met with them last week, we just wanted to understand because the Historic Preservation Commission didn't provide a recommendation per se. They also just provided, we were under the impression that it was just comments. We needed to receive comments from both HPC and City Council. We would put that into a letter. We would send those letters off to THC. That would be the comments from the CLG and HPC. After speaking with them, they wanted a more formal recommendation, which we didn't receive from City or from HPC, so we felt that it would be best to take it back to the HPC on January 8th to get that formal recommendation. After talking to I again this week spoke with the National Register coordinator at the Texas Historical Commission to find out what their preferred, is it can the council request a postponement? Can the council request an extension of time to review the nomination? And the THC really would prefer, if the council wishes to postpone, rather than requesting that as a formal postponement, it would be that the city council does not recommend that the site be nominated at this time, but you would welcome it in the future. There is a stipulation in as our role as a CLG. So if the HPC and the city council say they don't want this document or this structure to be nominated, then that really, it can't be heard at the State Board of Review. So there is a pause button. I just don't, at this point, I don't know what the HPC's action will be.
I don't either.
Yeah.
What if they're different?
Then they would go on just, I think, in the same manner as if the HPC and P&Z had differing recommendations to their State Board of Review.
P&Z?
Oh, I'm just saying, the way, sometimes we have HPC who has one recommendation and P&Z who has another, and it's brought to you all as city council to make that final decision with both of those recommendations. I would think that it would just move on in the process with differing recommendations.
Okay.
Right, I think it's just the collective body of information that the state will have that they can weigh, and I think it'll be up to them what weight they give to each, but you would think ultimately the property owner is going to carry some additional weight.
Is this open to the public, that anybody in the public can turn in a letter if they know about it?
Yes,
Okay.
I believe so.
Okay, so we need to do a letter. Council, do we want to include that there is a historic element of this? Historic. It's been around for a long time, however it got there. Okay.
Part of the criteria that it still looks the same as it did when it first built.
Does it have to look exactly the same?
I don't think it has to look exactly the same.
This is not the same.
And
Mr. Gonzalez, you're going to need to say that in the microphone and with the microphone on, please.
Thank you. This is not even close the way it was. It's completely different. It's been messed with citizens, putting bags of concrete and all that kind of stuff. That's just my
Yeah,
opinion.
well, that's accurate, but is the fact that there was a dam there that started an industrial movement in San Marcos, even if it doesn't look the same, is that still something that can be of historic significance?
I think so. And again, it's a.
That's where I'm going with that, Mr. Gonzalez.
It's a whole complex. The dam is one of, it's a significant feature of the whole site. It's made up of the dam, the mill race, the
Right.
two head gates.
The whole thing.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So that's true. This is the, what is it, the Thompson Dash Cape Dam and Mill Race. Well, technically it says Thompson-Cape Dam and Mill Race is what's on here.
Mayor, you asked earlier if the public can write letters as well, but how is the public going to find out this is going on if the people that live right adjacent to that didn't even find out? What's the solution for that?
Well, obviously they did find out because they were talking about it, so.
I'm getting calls and texts. There are people who know about it, but
Right.
I think at this point, it's not our responsibility to notify them. And the people who are interested both ways on this, they know about it, and they will tell others if they want a letter writing campaign. But I don't think that that's,
Oh,
I don't want to address that.
I just asked the question. Thank you.
Yeah. Do we want to acknowledge that it has changed over the years? Is that something that we put in here?
You can?
Acknowledge that it has changed. And then the other thing is, let me back up one second. Whenever there's a National Register plaque, is it just that plaque? Is there anything else that because we're used to seeing the big plaques with a lot of history. Does the National Register require, I'm going to say an explanation plaque, or do people just choose to
I
do
think
that?
people just choose to. It's not even a requirement to install a plaque.
Yeah.
That's just up to the individual.
It gets on a map somewhere.
It does get on a map, and it would be part of our, GIS, and it would be
Right.
part of our own system.
But I mean, if people are coming through Central Texas and say, I want to visit all the places that are on the National Register, it would show up there.
Sure,
If
yes.
all this happens,
Right.
that's where it would be.
Mhm.
Okay, because what I'm worried about is the content of what the longer, bigger plaque that's that size would be. So
Yeah, I think
that's not part of this.
Right, no, I
Okay.
think any interpretive material would come at a later date and would be more of a public process to try to figure out what that interpretive material would say and what's in it.
Well, who would be doing that, though?
I mean, it could be something that's directed by city council. I mean, as the property owner, we would. it's
Have some
not- it's-
say-so.
We would have some say-so, but it's not a requirement.
Okay. I'm writing down here, not enough time to provide further comments. Somebody could write that a little more flowery, but, okay, council, are we okay with at least sending a letter that says, yes, there's a historic element? We acknowledge that there have been changes over the years and that there's simply not enough time. We might throw in holidays there.
And if I'm sorry, I'll let you finish.
No, that was it. Go ahead.
I thought I heard a comment earlier, though, that what the state was, or at least the staff from the state level that met with Ms. Brake was suggesting that they would rather the letter say, we are not recommending it at this time, but this would be the reason why, because you haven't had enough.
I don't want to say
Is
we're
that
not recommending
what they were
it.
suggesting?
I mean, they stated that that was preferred. I
Okay,
think that if we
preferred.
have a letter that states this information, I think that would be enough, and we would take this information and provide that to the HBC as well.
Yeah, we're not
Okay.
going, heck yeah, do it now, but we're acknowledging part of it, but yet we're not ready to say, we're not saying heck yeah or heck no. Which they might want to heck yeah or heck no, but I don't think that we're prepared to do that. So I'm looking to see if council is fine with acknowledging a historic element, that there have been, even if we want to say substantial changes and additions over the years, but due to holidays and meeting schedules, there is not enough time to provide further info. Are y'all good with that? If not, say so now and provide
Well,
what you're not happy with.
Are we actually giving a recommendation one way or the other? Or
Nope.
just-
Unless y'all want to do that, I mean,
I wouldn't mind doing that.
I-
I'd give a recommendation too.
Yeah, I would want to acknowledge that the process is rushed, yes, but I feel that it does meet the criteria, so I would be in favor of recommending. Yes, but next time give us more time, or yes, but we're doing it under y'all's rush timeline and would appreciate that y'all not rush it in the future.
Now, you're saying it doesn't meet the criteria.
I'm not saying it does meet the criteria.
What did you say, sir?
I'm saying that I feel it does meet the criteria. So if meeting the one of the four, A, B, C, or D, is what is needed for recommendation, I feel it does meet it, therefore we should be recommending.
Well, you read it earlier, and I think you said it has to look pretty close, like it did from the get start. It doesn't even, I've been here all my life, and it's getting worse and worse every single year. I just don't think it looks the same. Therefore, I don't, not to argue your point, but that's the criteria I'm going on.
Well, there is one other element too. I think the owner, it's not like a traditional deal where you go to the HPC and then council for a recommendation. I think the owner can give almost any justification, but the state is bound by the criteria that we're talking. So I think people can even argue about, two reasonable minds could argue about the historical integrity and things like that. But the state itself is going to apply those criteria. We can invoke it, but we're not bound by it in the same way the state is. And then one other thing, just depending where you want to go on this, the posting is for a possible resolution. So if you could have the motion to send the letter, as you're suggesting, Mayor, like that, or a motion for a resolution support or against, if but it sounds like the letter is where most of the council wants to go, but could be a motion and a vote on that letter.
Okay. Somebody say something? Yes.
Just getting into like the eligibility and the subjective nature of it. In our packet, it was included, the National Registry. I don't know if this is like almost like a rubric or whatever. But on page 23, when we talk about non-eligible, it does say a
Page 23
reconstructed.
of what?
The actual thing, it's 264 of the packet.
Thank you.
A reconstructed mound or other reconstructed site will generally not be considered eligible because original cultural materials or context or both have been lost. Wording like that kind of exists all throughout this particular bulletin or whatever you want to call it. And that's also why I was saying it feels a bit rushed for us. And I noticed that when I watched the Historical Preservation Commission, that was another thing that they felt they struggled with, is whether or not they were well equipped to actually, in a way, make a decision almost as if we are the National Registry. And given some of that language, like I said, all throughout this bulletin, that's why I'm also struggling with whether I can honestly say it does meet the criteria. So I just wanted to say that.
I'm sorry, you said that you are not thinking it meets the criteria.
I'm not necessarily taking a stance. What I am
Okay.
saying is because of language that exists in this bulletin as far as how they evaluate and apply this criteria, does seem to conflict with what the dam currently looks like, is why I'm saying I'm struggling even saying it unequivocally meets the criteria as presented. And without being able to unequivocally say that, that's why I'm saying I'm struggling.
Yeah, and here it's talking about things that have been taken away from a site and how much you take away, how much you're gonna take away before it's not eligible anymore. In our case, there's some stuff that's gone away, but there's been a lot of stuff added. And that was, I think, Mr. Gonzalez's
Those
point
contemporary
earlier.
materials, I think, were the ones.
Exactly.
I think contemporary materials is another word that's found within this bulletin that sort of is under that non-eligibility context. So, like I said, philosophically, we may all agree of historical significance, right? But per this decision, it's supposed to be
Right.
based off of what the National Registry defines.
Right.
And
That's why I was saying it's, there are historic elements, and generally, I would say that it's historic. Does it meet the criteria for the registry is where I'm hesitating, not wanting to say, heck yeah, on this,
Yeah.
because I'm unsure.
Yeah, and without hearing from like the applicant, sort of like the rationale, how this all came about, I feel like I'm missing a large piece of the pie.
Yeah.
And so to be able to make a more holistic decision, I think those are things I need answers to, which is why I wasn't explicitly against it. I'm just not in a position to be able to send anything other than the letter that we were talking about.
Okay, so Mr. Gonzalez over here, is it okay with the letter, but you want to say yes, historic still?
Yeah, well, Mayor, 'cause, kind of the way I'm seeing it, and I think that this is sort of where Sam was going, is as both the property owner and the city in which the potentially historic item exists, we're essentially saying, do we want the National Registry to recognize it? I think the splitting hairs on whether it qualifies or not is a decision for them to make. But as a council, do we want them to consider it? My answer to that question would be yes.
Do we want them to consider it
Consider for the National
inclusion on the National Register, and then they go through
Yeah, and
and
they go through their
split the
criteria and
hairs?
split the hairs and decide whether it qualifies.
That's where I was sitting at right there, because we all
Not
said it.
a bad idea. Well, they're gonna determine whether it's truly,
Right, but I don't think it's for us to split hairs and be like, well, do we qualify or not? Do we want it? Yes. And then they split the hairs on whether or not they're gonna give it to us.
There are
So,
so many places.
that
here.
we suggest it or recommend it to them, and they'll figure it out. It's not up to us to figure it out.
Essentially, yeah.
Well, I mean, if it was something that was 20 years old, or, I mean, something that clearly, but here's something that I find weird, is that the people who fill out the application, unless I missed an email, I didn't hear from them. Please support this. So any of y'all hear from?
No, and this is also
That-
like
that's
a
just-
interesting
that's
thing.
strange.
This is, yeah, it's also interesting because if there's one thing I've realized about this community is people who are interested in historic preservation generally come out and talk in support of issues. And I can tell
bring
you, I've heard nothing.
2 people with them.
Yeah, I've heard nothing about this, and so, I also wonder like how on our list of priorities on what we're going to nominate, how this was reached versus some other things I've heard people talk about, having the same desire to do so.
This is
Yeah.
an old argument. It's been going on for years.
Oh, I definitely, that was made clear to me the moment I started. And I'm not coming from any of that perspective, because I don't have that knowledge. This is purely at what I'm looking at right now.
Okay, I'm gonna go around again after you make your comments, and I'll be asking the question a little differently.
Oh, okay, yeah, I just wanted clarification on where we're at. So if I'm understanding correctly, was it Lorenzo or Matthew that said you want to just like recommend it and then via con Dios let somebody else decide whether it,
Yeah,
right?
and
Because clearly
so where I'm coming
we
from is
don't have that expertise.
sort of what the mayor said earlier about, so if someone decides they want to go see all the National Register of Historic Places in Central Texas, and that's what brings them into San Marcos to come look at the plaque that we may or may not put there, and now they spend money and do whatever for the day that they're here, then it increases our tourism. So I see it being registered or being on the National Register of Historic Places as
Like
another
beneficial.
reason for people to come and travel to San Marcos. I'm not even thinking about the bigger argument that has been going on for decades over the dam. I'm just thinking of, will having an additional tourist stop in the city benefit the city?
Okay, so that would mean that the letter would mention historic element, and, you know, it's been here for years. It was part of the industrial development of San Marcos. Do we not even need to acknowledge the changes then?
No, we wouldn't.
No?
I don't think it makes a difference.
Okay.
The concept's still the
Okay.
same.
Then, and we're gonna just take out the part about not enough time to provide further information, and just say, we agree that there's historic element and some things that,
Yeah.
okay?
That sounds good.
So I have a yes from Mr. Gonzalez, Lorenzo Gonzalez. I think we've got a yes from Mr. Mendoza.
If we do, but I just want to point out again, just point this out, that what if this criteria was placed when we had the original San Xavier mission that we had here for the establishment of San Marcos, that no longer exists to anything like it used to. We have to, dig down 7 or 8 feet to get down to the foundations of the original settlement. But it's recognized.
There's
because
a
of-
marker, but is it on the National Register?
No, but it is marked, and that's what I'm saying, there is significance there, just because it doesn't hold
Mm-hmm.
it there. As a city, we all set up here, we see the historical significance.
Mm-hmm.
Let those experts, all I'm seeing in this letter here is, do we want them to take the next look at that? That's what I'm seeing in this letter. So I'm
Well,
all
send him a
about-
letter. Well, they're gonna take a look at it regardless of whether we
But
send a
this is
letter or
just us
not,
saying,
but.
please, we want you to take a look at it. So
Okay.
I'm in favor of just
So
pushing
you're a
forward.
yes, Mr. Scott is a yes, I'll be a yes. Ms. Garza?
I'll be a yes, because that's not my area of expertise, but I'm sure they can figure it out.
Well, they'll figure out if it qualifies.
Yeah.
Mr. Gonzalez?
I'm sorry, didn't have a mic on. I think, you know, I don't have a problem so much with the plaque. I just don't want to give somebody the idea that they're gonna rebuild or take out the dam. This has nothing to do with the dam, this is just with the plaque.
Get back from your microphone a
Oh,
little
I'm sorry.
bit.
This has nothing to do with the dam, just the plaque right there, am I
It
correct?
has nothing to do with rebuilding or removal,
Then,
correct?
it doesn't give them an excuse to build it, right?
It doesn't protect it, and it doesn't
Yeah,
provide.
thank you, Mayor.
Right.
It's more, it doesn't carry that legal weight. It carries
Right. Correct.
political weight
Right.
the next time, you know, if there's a push to make it a local historic landmark, but it doesn't carry legal weight. It carries political weight.
It's an honorary designation.
Right, you can have that and
You can-
still tear the house down.
Correct.
Or a new buyer could tear the house down.
Correct.
Okay.
And just one other thing to clarify with Ms. Bray, because I may have misunderstood, the caption, the posting is, you know, a nomination whether to support, I'm sorry, resolution whether to support the nomination. And we're talking about a letter.
Well,
Are they very specific,
they-
if you recall, about a resolution?
A resolution or a letter,
Okay.
we had started out with this idea as it would be a discussion item, and we would just take the comments received and put it into a letter. And then we talked about it a little bit more, and since you all would be taking action on it, thought it might be okay to be put into a resolution. So if it can be taken from the resolution into a letter, that would be fine. I
Okay,
don't think
so-
THC has
I
a
So
think,
preference.
we'll go with the
given
letter.
our short time frame, a letter is, this just says notify. I think that what we can do is the brief letter, and it would really make more sense for the HPC to go into the detail. And if they want to do a resolution or a letter, I'm going to leave that up to somebody else to figure out.
I like the idea of the letter instead.
Okay, are you okay with a letter saying, acknowledging historic nature of the structure?
Why,
It's
not
okay
really,
to say
because
no.
It's not the same structure. I'll go with no then.
Okay, you're a no. Ms. Rodriguez?
I mean, the reason I was a bit confused was because the two questions that are posed on the screen, and those were the same questions that were posed to HPC and what was the topic of their entire discussion. So I get like what y'all are saying, that it's not our position.
Yeah.
But that's where I was coming from with the questions. Now, whether we get into like the philosophical, whether those definitions, to your point, Mr. Mendoza, are just in identifying proper history, completely agree. But that's a conversation for another day. I'm fine. I don't even know, what does the letter even exist? What are we at anymore?
We're acknowledging the historic aspects as shown in the application, you know, when it was built, what it provided for San Marcos, the industrial nature, first one in San Marcos. Those kinds of things can go in here.
So we're back to the original conversation of basing it off of the draft that was included in our packet?
Draft?
That, the application that was included in our packet?
Yes, the application.
Okay. Yeah, that's the part I had issue with. Like, I'm not denying the historical nature of this, but it's just like, I just feel that there's a whole piece of the pie missing when it comes to the use of enslaved labor and like the celebration of the people who were
And
the
that's
ones who
why
did
I
the
didn't want to
enslaving.
repeat any of that.
Yeah.
And what we send to someone.
But
Just-
that's where my ignorance is our letter going to be attached in the same file as this application, where one could maybe put two and two together and think that we're okay with the application as written? And the story as written?
Unless we say differently, that's probably the implication.
And that's where I'm struggling with.
I
Again, for the
understand.
record, I'm fine with it, but I just wish that when we talk about like the actual history, that it looked different than what we're looking at
That's
today.
why I was worried about the plaque.
Yeah. So I can't really give a yes right now, if that's the case.
Okay, so I'm put you down as a no. Hold on. I'm sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but I've got 5 yeses to move forward. But I do think that, Ms. Brake, what we put in the letter, if you would make sure that none of what are y'all good with making sure that none of what Ms. Rodriguez was talking about goes into the letter?
Yes, and also I have a procedural question, because since we technically have a motion and a second, and it was written as a.
Actually, we don't have a motion or a second yet. I was just trying to get it formulated. I think, do we? Oh, yes, we have a motion and a second to start the conversation. I'm gonna, the vote that we have is gonna be on
Okay, cool.
the letter.
That was my procedural thing. Like, is there current motion for the resolution? And if so, how do we back out of that? But the motion was just to start discussing.
I may ask for a substitute motion.
And then my other, I guess, comment was, rather than expand on everything, can our letter essentially just be part one of the proposed resolution? Just that the city council of the city of San Marcos supports the nomination to the National Register of the Historic Places for the Thompson Cape Dam and Mill Race submitted by the applicant Preservation Texas to the Texas Historic Commission in November 2025. And leave it at that. Don't go into details. Just say that we support.
Yeah, you're gonna have to, I don't know if your microphone in good, but half the time we really can't hear you, Mr. Gonzalez.
Sorry, I mean, I guess my point was, can we make the letter as generic and as simple as possible, and essentially the letter just be part one of the proposed, resolution that essentially just says the city supports the nomination to the National Register of Historic Places for the Thompson Cape Dam and Mill Race submitted by the applicant, or even leave that part out, just we support the nomination of the Thomas Cape Dam Mill Race to the National Register of Historic Places.
I'm concerned that if we don't say, this is what we want, and leave out the part that you're talking about, and if we just say, we support this application, that all that's going to be in there. But how much of what you're talking about, Ms. Rodriguez, is actually in this application in the words that we see in front of us
When you say.
about the slave labor?
Oh, it exists in like little parts and pieces all throughout this application, but it's the way in which it's almost like, yeah, we're gonna briefly touch on this, and then we're gonna really move on and talk about the success of the business and the industry and XYZ, and not the fact that none of that would have been possible had it not been for people using their hands because they were forced to without consent to build this thing.
Yeah, the
Like
framing
that is,
weird.
and the framing, I said it earlier, it literally makes it sound like these people, whether they were native or black, would have been living in destitute had these settlers not come and done this for them and been so gracious. Like, that part I'm inherently conflicted with.
Right, it's like, they're romanticizing the
It's
history.
an absolute romanticization.
And
of
that's
history.
why I wanted to go with just minimal information and not include all of that. Because I don't want to do it and then
I just
address it.
worry-
But to
worry
not
without-
address it is just as bad.
Exactly.
Well-
I worry without explicitly addressing that part.
Well, here we are labeling the Cape family as being slave owners.
But does this
This-
matter for the
They
national?
are.
talks about
That is,
them
but
being
We
slave
haven't even had a chance to
Time
speak
out.
on the property.
Time out, both of you.
Okay.
Does that matter for the National Register?
No.
That's what, because that's what we're talking about for this, is simply inclusion on the National
But when
Register.
we talk about National Register, what is followed? Of historic places.
Correct.
History,
Mhm.
okay? When we're talking about history and the story behind this and the narrative that is currently included in this packet, all I'm saying is that the little graze over the actual other side of the history to this, you can't tell me that when they factor all of this into their decision collectively, that without that information, what they're presented is sort of what's gonna eventually make it to whatever final document is agreed upon, if it is agreed upon. And so, that's why I felt it was important for me to say on the record, one second, Mr. Mendoza, for me to say on the record how I felt about sort of the opt-out of that particular part in this application, is what I'm saying.
And that's where I was going in the very beginning, when I said just general history and not saying we're 100% in favor of every word in this application. But, Ms. Brake, National Register, is going to be on the list or not. I assume this application is going to be associated with it.
Yes, ma'am.
That if somebody looks it up, they're going to see the application.
Correct. They would see what was.
As it was submitted.
Right, and if at the State Board of Review, there's edits to be made to the to the narrative in the nomination, they will usually kick it back to whomever the applicant is to make those changes.
Who is the applicant?
It's a nonprofit, Preservation
Preservation
Texas.
Texas. Okay, so if I, individual citizen, heard about this and was going through the items that Ms. Rodriguez was talking about, saying, I object to this, and this, and something's not accurate and whatever, regardless of what it is, then you're saying that the SBR, State Board of
Review.
would look at that and maybe acknowledge it or not or whatever, but they might go back to the applicant, in this case Preservation Texas, and say, could you go study this a little more? You two go talk.
Yes, ma'am.
And
Potentially, right.
figure it out.
Right.
That's an option that could happen
Yes.
by the State Board of Review.
A potential. But there's nothing stopping us from as a governing body, writing the letter on behalf of this thing to really ensure that we're not just leaving it up to the whims of somebody hopefully emphasizing this later down the line, when we have the opportunity to say explicitly that this is something that we care
Then
about
at this
addressing.
point, what I need to hear from you is I want in the letter, I want it to say this.
I want to make a motion that within this letter, we include.
It's not a motion yet.
that
We're gonna
we-
put it all together.
Okay, forget the motion word. That we expand upon the history to accurately reflect the contributions of those enslaved towards building this thing. I don't know.
Is it a given that it was slave labor? There have been conversations.
That's included in this application. So whoever wrote it they're not here for me to question. I'm reading their words, and it's mentioned multiple times in this application that was in fact what created this mill race.
Mayor, and I'm sitting here talking to the family who own that property, who donated it, and says the Cape family did not own slaves, and they've got documentation.
That's what I'm
I
saying.
think
is-
this letter doesn't mention the Cape,
I know,
it mentions the
but
Thompson.
this is where I'm talking about, but the Cape's Dam.
mentions the Thompson.
I know, but Cape's Dam, we're putting this all together because of Cape's Dam.
And-
We're he say, she say on this one.
And that's what I have heard in conversations over the last
Yes, ma'am. I'm
5,
not
6,
gonna
7,
accuse
8
somebody.
years, that I don't think it's a given that it was slave labor that built it.
As I
the
said, this didn't
presentation.
mention Cape in terms of owning enslaved people. It mentioned the Thompson family in this narrative that's given. I'm not sure if y'all had a chance to read it. So this isn't something I'm just like pulling out of open air. I'm using their own language that's included in this application. And again, if that's incorrect, it would be great to have somebody to correct the record, like who actually wrote this application, because I can understand why you wouldn't want that as a family name. I get that. But I'm telling you, I'm pulling from what is included in here. So.
But what I'm telling you is that is a topic that has been under discussion. Just because it's written in here doesn't mean it's accurate.
Right, but we are writing a letter in support
support of
of
this
this
And that's why I'm
application.
trying to
Yeah.
not do the letter in support of that section.
Yeah, and I mean, after what Mr. Mendoza said, like, if I was that family and this letter sort of doesn't explicitly say that, I would also want that corrected
Right.
and reflected in this letter.
True.
And so again, because this is so rushed, we can't actually make that picture actually full and clear.
Well, this is where I'm saying
There's been two
that.
sides to that, hold on, Ms. Mendoza, there's been two sides to that story for quite some time.
Well, that's
And I'm not
also-
sure what,
Well, Mayor, that's also the case, not to get grand, but that's also the case with most history when it comes to who owned slaves. So, it's, so, you know, again, to make sure the story is accurate to those who, based off of this, I don't have an accurate depiction of what the history is. And if this is leading to somebody potentially saying, hey, I had nothing to do with that, fair, then I would want this to reflect that, but that's not clear in here.
But we're not talking about who built the dam, we're talking about.
it's in here.
But again, Mr. Scott, the question I asked earlier, though, was, it's one thing for us to acknowledge the historical contributions of this site, right? I don't think any of us have argued with that. What I asked earlier, though, is when our letter of support is included in the packet that's going to be available for them to make this decision, is it going to be with this application that's currently in our packet as presented? The answer was yes. So in a way.
No, the answer was that, go ahead.
So in a way, we are in fact writing some letter of support, without explicitly naming it in the letter, that we're not tying ourselves to the verbiage currently presented, then it can be perceived as if we are.
That's why I was asking that our letter didn't include that, but did include the historical nature
Yeah.
Which
of the
I'm fine
dam.
with, but the
Yeah.
conversation sort of steered
No,
away
that-
from
No,
that.
that's what
Let's get back on
I
track.
went around the table on, and that's where we are, 5-2.
Well, no.
But there was also, you kind of said though, at the same time, like, maybe I misheard, but like, let's keep this other stuff over here. And not, just
And
not
not part of our recommendation letter.
Include it.
mention it. And so what part are you talking about, that we would not?
That our letter would include the historical nature, and it would include things about when it was built, contributed to the beginnings of San Marcos, first industry, et cetera, and not talk about how it was built or by whom.
Well, I think
That's-
that's as important as anything else.
And that's what the
But we
registry
don't
needs to
know.
figure
You
out.
want- Well, that's, someone has to know.
There's been two sides of that for the last, I don't know how many years.
I guess my question is like, when it get, like if and when it gets to this group, right, the National Register criteria people, are they gonna go in and like fact check it, or like what is that process? Because to me, it's like, it's almost like we are co-signing everything that this applicant like the application states.
That's what I'm trying not to do.
Yes, that's
By
what I'm saying.
pushing it forward, does that make sense? But it's like, yeah, we agree with the general vibe, but
I don't think it's real easy to actually get on those listings. I think you have to do a lot of proof and back checking and.
Oh, I know a friend of mine to get her house on, she spent years
Right, so
documenting.
that's my point, yeah. So, I think they do quite a bit of back check and fact check and.
I just want this to go to the next level so they can actually work
Okay,
this out.
is it possible to do a letter? And I'm gonna say almost as if we were just starting from scratch. It was our idea to say National Register. And we talk about the things we've agreed on and not include the things that we've said we don't want in there because we don't know. And gosh, I hate to do it this way, but to say, we can't verify the accuracy of everything that's in this application.
Well, I don't know, how do we know it got built when they said it was gonna get built, when they said it was built?
I think there's probably newspaper accounts, et
Well,
cetera.
if there is, I'm sure there's gonna be newspaper accounts about who built it.
they're already, sorry. They're already mentioning the slave. So if we could just add something like that, like.
Well, if you're showing that to me, you need to tell everybody, so put your microphone on. Okay.
That's a registry.
I'm sorry, Ms. Brake, I didn't give you an opportunity to answer. If you did, I didn't hear it.
I didn't answer. I
Oh.
was just listening. I mean, I think at this point, the letter can state that there is a historic element. Maybe there is some concerns about the narrative surrounding the enslavement of people within, you know, maybe that part just needs to be expanded some more. Maybe there's more research that needs to be done so that it's more clear in the narrative.
Wouldn't that be something they would wanna know? Like they would ask? And not
Right, I
wouldn't
think-
subject them to just because?
Would THC or the National Register people go through everything here and verify all of that? I mean, would they be verifying the 520 feet upstream of the wheel pit, the other, that kind of thing? Would they be verifying all of those
That
things? And would they be looking to verify who the builders were?
I don't know if they would field, I'm sure they would do some sort of verification. I can't remember how many people are on the State Board of Review, but they are preservation professionals that are appointed by.
Right.
And, you know, it's one of many nominations for the January meeting. I don't know what their verification process is, but my guess is that they would have done some sort of verification or double checking, yeah.
They may postpone it themselves until they get more time to check into it. That'd be their job.
Yeah, because they won't get the letter from the HPC until like Wednesday, the week that it's due on Friday or something.
We have until, the city has until January 16th. If the HPC meets on January 8th, we could send it as early as January 9th, you know, depending upon what they,
I was thinking it might be the next week.
yeah, and we can send it via email to the THC's staff.
Okay.
So Mayor,
Yes.
just searching the existing National Register of Historic Places database online, the only information that's publicly available is essentially the first 4 pages of what is attachment B in our packet, or in our, so essentially the application questions 1 through 11. So all
What page
the-
are you on in our packet?
So I'm on the interactive agenda, but it's attachment B.
That means nothing to me with the packet that I'm looking at. I don't know what attachment B is, because I don't
So it's
see-
the actual application. that
Give me the
says
first line on the page.
SBR draft, United States Department of Interior, National Park Service, National Register of Historic Places registration form.
Yeah, there's about 20 pages that look like that.
Okay, so the first 4 pages of that is what will be put on the national database. So all the narrative that we're discussing wouldn't even become public facing on the National Register of Historic Places database. So no one will read this contentious history that's included, because it wouldn't actually be part of the registry.
Sure, you're saying just the application part, not the supporting information?
Yes.
If I may,
Please.
the narrative does become a part. I know you might not be finding it right now, but like the Texas Historical Commission, they have an atlas. When they get a National Register nomination, it includes the narrative, the application piece, you know, the first 4 pages, the maps, the pictures. They put it all together on their site, on their atlas.
We understand that. He's
Yeah.
just saying that we would only say the first 4 pages is
Gotcha.
all we can verify, or,
Understood.
but that may not be the right word, but that's, he's saying, yes, we know that, but we're only talking about the first 4 pages. And it's really hard for us to say this part and not that part.
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
are we still considering a letter, right?
Yes.
Okay, I emailed city manager and, sure, yeah, and you, some verbiage we might consider, like if it's looking like it's gonna be for a letter, I think that I would be content with a verbiage that says something like I emailed.
Okay. Well, this is during a meeting, so things need to go on the table. And while I sneeze, if you could read that, I'd be thrilled.
Oh, well, I just wanted them to bring it up.
I just emailed it to Mr. Meagle so that
Okay,
I
cool.
could ask him to put that on the screen.
Yeah.
So y'all can all take a look at it.
And Mayor, while they're putting that up,
Here's what we're gonna do. We've been here 2 hours, we haven't had a break. So we're gonna take a break, and it's 8:08, and come back at 8:15, and let's see if we can wrap this up, because we got some other heavy stuff to talk about. So that's what we're gonna do. We're on recess. Our recess is over. It is 8:19. We have some suggested language on the screen, but before we address that, council, I do have concerns about the fact, and it's not our responsibility, about the fact that the River Foundation didn't get a notification So are y'all good if we indicate in there just a sentence that says we are not the sole property owner? And which you mentioned earlier, Parks and Wildlife. It's the river.
Parks and Wildlife owns Stokes Park.
And that too, okay. Just note that we are not the sole property owner, just one sentence about the other owners. Everybody good with that? Just a statement.
Okay.
It may look a little weird, but just a statement.
Sure.
Okay. Now, this before we do this, Ms. Brake,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm a tourist. I want to see national registers everywhere I go, or places that are on the National Register everywhere I go. So I'm going to Central Texas, and I look it up. If I see that application, will our letters, the other letters, be?
No, ma'am.
I didn't think so.
No, ma'am, it's just the thing that says SBR draft,
Right,
all
that's-
that documentation.
Okay, I'm assuming
yes.
that, I just wanted to
Correct.
confirm.
Right, no.
However, with what we have, I'm sorry, whoever's typing that, I do not want it in the middle of this paragraph, please. Just make it, it's gonna be separate, a separate sentence someplace else, not in the middle of this, it confuses this. But thank you for starting it. Okay, so with what we're suggesting here, where we're talking about I'm gonna say the builders, this is enough, I hope, to get the SBR to talk to the application people, which will turn into the statement that goes with it after it's not application anymore, if everything passes, to get them to alter it. That's our hope by putting this information
Correct. Right.
out there to them.
Right,
Well, there's no guarantee of that, but it could happen.
correct.
Okay. I just wanted to get all that laid out first. So, I'm gonna give y'all a minute to read what we have here. And I need to know if y'all are good with this inclusion in the letter.
I'm good.
I'm good with that, Mayor.
Everybody good with it? Anybody not good with it? I think this is well done and puts our position out there clearly. So we want this in this form, with these words in this order, in the letter. Now, there can be other things about what we talked about before, being built, earliest industry, all those good things can still be there, but we want this not as the last paragraph on the third page. I'm not saying it has to be 3 pages. It could be 1.
Mhm.
I just want to make sure this doesn't get lost.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Council, are y'all good with this? Mr. Gonzalez?
I just got a quick question. Are you telling us everything that we should know that was discussed with that committee?
Yes, and we decided to take this item back to the commission on the 8th in order to get more discussion and a recommendation from them.
Everything that would be important to this body here, we heard about it.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'll tell you, there was one person who, and no crime in this, was not familiar with this structure as much as we are.
Right.
And says,
Yeah. Well, I just would make sure that we have all the facts, and I don't want these guys to look back and say, no one ever told us this, or they were gonna look into it, and they found out later, or whatever.
yeah.
but
Well, it wasn't a long discussion. I watched the meeting.
Yeah.
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I'd actually ask that we change the usage of "and the labor systems that made its productivity possible."
Where are you?
And just the last line, and the one in bold.
Uh-huh.
And just explicitly say people.
And say people instead of labor systems?
Mm-hmm. We talk about labor in other parts of this.
I like it. Do y'all like it? Scratch labor systems and put people.
And the people that made it its productivity possible.
Sure.
I think that's better. There was something about that last phrase that was
Well,
bothering me a little bit.
labor systems was meant to say if there is a possibility that it was slavery. Slavery is a system of forced labor without taking like a firm stance on it. Does that make sense? Versus the people? I feel like the people kind of dilutes it. But
I definitely hear that rationale for sure. I just didn't know, given that, we do say enslaved labor, and then we also mention forced labor in other parts. And so I felt like, given the usage of both of those, to add people at the end almost humanizes it outside of just the two.
Yeah, it wasn't a system, it was people that built that.
Yeah.
right.
Which is obviously a greater system that, yes.
Right, because to me,
hear that.
I don't care so much about the naming of individual people than naming the system of labor. But I'm also a sociologist, so that's how I think. I'm fine either way.
I'm gonna go back and get it formal
Mayor,
in a minute.
I'm sure this is not proper, but I was gonna ask, is there any way I can ask Diane Wasnick a question, if she's still here?
I think she's still here. She's out in the lobby. I think she's quite familiar with the Capes Dam and her previous role as executive director of the River
Yes, sir.
Foundation. I think she knows a lot about it.
More than probably all of
I'm
us.
Diane Wasenick.
My question to you is, are we hearing everything that, to your knowledge, that took place that was discussed in that meeting?
Well, the meeting I was concerned about, that I talked about to y'all, several of y'all, was the HPC meeting that happened recently. And they brought up, in my understanding, I have not been able to watch the meeting recording, but my understanding is they wanted something put in their letter, which is separate from yours, about the fact that the River Foundation owns the property adjoining the dam and including part of the dam. And I think Jane addressed that with her sentence
Yeah.
that she added, so I think that's taken care of.
Okay, I remember. Good job, Jane. So did the mayor.
I watched the meeting.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. So,
They also, in that commission,
it's commission, yeah.
sorry, last thing. They also had mentioned in, maybe I misheard whether it was in their letter or we could apply it here. But just given that we have current things that we're waiting on as far as a decision to be made about the future of the dam itself, that essentially this is not to conflict with whatever recommendations are forthcoming about what happens to that. It was particularly about what was. So I don't know if they're gonna include that in their letter and we wanna duplicate that. I understand that it's already been presented that this does not prohibit, as I understood, a potential demolishment if that is what the body so chooses. But I don't know if we wanted to be explicit about that, informing them that we have some pending information as a city that we've already contracted.
I don't see the,
That has to do with the future, though.
yeah, that don't see the connection right now, meaning, I don't want to put it in either direction. We either have to save it or tear it down. That's why I don't want to just mention that.
The question was, it's obviously y'all's prerogative as a body. The question was rather not, we wanted to purely inform them that this is what we're doing.
That we're having this, that we've got the study going?
They talked about that in
I
the.
don't know how that's relevant for something that would be, unless we already had plans to tear it out.
No, I'm only asking since we were talking about the discussions from that commission. That was one of the things.
And
that
if they want to include it, that would be up to them. I personally don't see a need. I don't know that, if y'all voted to do it, it wouldn't bother me too much, but I'm I don't see a need to put it in there. Ms. Bright, do we need to put it in there?
It's specific to the nomination. I know that there's other aspects happening with this particular property, so it's not necessarily needed for this particular letter, but we will also get clarification from the HPC on the 8th, which way they want to go with that.
Okay, finally found the piece of paper I'm looking for. Okay, council, now what we have is the paragraph, the information that denotes all landowners, and the general historic information built when, et cetera. And we're going to do a letter and not a resolution. And I'm going around the table on that one. So, Ms. Rodriguez.
I'm sorry, Mayor, the decision is on what?
Actually, what I need to do is I need a motion. So me saying all that was actually a motion. I didn't say I would make a motion, but that's what I meant, Liz. You know I meant that, right? Okay.
Second.
What is the motion then?
Well, we have a motion and a second that we needed to get this on the table.
Okay.
So, Mr. Gary, what's the easiest thing to do is to, this has consider approval of a resolution, and we're saying we want to do a letter.
And I think that's within the realm of possible actions. You're considering a resolution, it's okay. But you did talk about a substitute motion, just to clarify.
Well, perhaps if our motion maker and our second were amenable to a substitute motion, they could make the motion that I was just describing and
Yes,
second
yes,
it.
ma'am.
Are
But
y'all
what's
willing
the
to do
motion
that?
you're describing?
Okay. That we do a letter. It includes this lovely paragraph here that we've made a change to. That it also has a separate paragraph that acknowledges and denotes all the landowners. And that the general historic information that we talked about before, like when it was built, initial industry in San Marcos, to be included in the letter. Is that okay with yours? Okay, we have a substitute motion, okayed by the motion maker and the seconder. And so now, I guess at this point, we can just push button vote.
Right, and that'll be, just for clarification too, it'll be signed by you.
I think that would be the thing to do.
Right. I just want to clarify, I'm voting no because overall it feels weird, but I did, if it's going to say yes, which I'm reading the room is going to say yes, I wanted it to include that, so.
Same.
It's okay, it's your right to do that.
I just want to clarify, they're like, Alyssa, all that drama for what?
Mr. Gonzalez?
Nothing if not self-aware.
Remember, you have to hit your button twice sometimes. We're waiting on you.
Can I just pick it up and throw it in the ground?
No.
Sometimes it works that way.
Like the old TVs back in the day?
The motion passes 4-3.
Okay, so we've got, okay. So, a letter will be sent, and we have now closed out item 8, and we're on to item 9.
Receive a staff presentation, discuss a request on behalf of Highlander SM1 LLC and Donald and Jermaine Tuff to amend the preferred scenario map of the city's comprehensive plan from the designation of conservation and cluster to commercial and employment low for approximately 199.49 acres of land on the western side of the 900 block of Harris Lane.
Presentation?
Good evening, everybody. Julia Cleary, Senior Planner, Planning and Development Services.
Hold on a second. My bad. Do we need a motion to start talking about this? Because in my brain, I had it as a public hearing where we do a presentation before the motion. but it isn't a public hearing tonight.
And it's not even action, it's.
Oh, it's not even action, that's
It's
right.
that additional step we add for more just transparency to give the public a heads up, this is coming for
So it's
action
a
at a future meeting.
presentation, and
Yeah,
we
so
can
no
discuss
motion
it,
is
but
needed.
there's no motion. My apologies, please continue, Ms. Cleary. My
Thank
bad.
you. So this is a resubmittal of the Preferred Scenario Amendment PSA 2501 for a proposed data center, which was brought to council in August of this year. The site is approximately 200 acres and is located on Francis Harris Lane. The majority of the site is in the city limits, however, approximately 60 acres, so the faded white bit you'll see there, is still in the ETJ, and so there is a pending annexation case being considered separately by council. In terms of surrounding land uses, we have rural residential along the northern boundary on Grant Harris, agricultural to the south and east, and the Hayes Energy Power Plant to the southwest on the other side of Francis Harris Lane. I will note that although the property on the eastern side of Francis Harris Lane is vacant in June this year, council gave initial authorization to negotiate a development agreement for a separate data center with SABI, and that is currently under review. There is a cemetery surrounded by the wider site, so that little square in the middle. However, that is not owned by the applicant and so is not part of this development request. There are two associated cases, ZC 2513, which is a resubmittal of ZC 2502, also recommended for denial by P&Z back in March, and then the annexation case, AN 2502, for the 60 acres in the ETJ, which was approved on first reading earlier this year. However, the second reading was deferred at the request of the applicant until they received their preferred zoning district. Next slide, please. So just a brief overview of the timeline. In March this year, P&Z voted to recommend denial of PSA 2501, so the previous case. Per city code, if P&Z recommends denial, a 6-1 vote from council is required for the item to be approved. In August, council voted 5-2 of the request in favor. However, the motion failed as it didn't have the sufficient supermajority. And then in October, the applicant resubmitted under PSA 2502, and the nature of the request is the same. Next slide, please. So this slide shows a picture of the existing site for context, taken from Francis Harris Lane, looking south. As noted, is across from the Hayes Energy Power Plant, and per staff's understanding, the existing infrastructure alongside the power plant is one of the main draws for data center requests in this area. Next slide, please. So the request we are discussing this evening is to change to the place type in the comprehensive plan from conservation cluster to commercial employment low in order to facilitate the construction of a data center with the associated zoning change. So this would match the designation of the adjacent power plant, which is shown in pink on the map. Next slide, please. So the objective of the current place type, conservation cluster, is to identify areas to conserve and reserve for future development as a means of focusing more intensive development in other areas of the community. So this allows for character districts, manufactured housing, CM commercial, FD future development, and low intensity planning areas, whereas the requested designation is to facilitate lower density, auto-oriented retail, office, and industrial type uses. As the applicant is requesting a light industrial zoning district to enable the data center development, a preferred scenario to this place type will be required, which will then allow all special districts, which is another kind of name for our commercial districts, character districts 4 and 5, and employment center planning areas. Next slide, please. So a couple of maps. So the majority of the site is zoned character district 2.5, which allows predominantly single family uses. With the exception of the power plant, which is zoned HI heavy industrial, you'll notice that the surrounding land is all white because it's predominantly located outside the city limits in the ETJ, and therefore is not subject to zoning. On the map to the right, you'll see there are no known environmental constraints on the property. It's not located in the floodplain or floodway, the San Marcos River Protection Zone, or the Edwards Aquifer. In addition, I will note that the applicant did progress partially through the permit process as a single-family subdivision for the land zone CD 2.5, and as part of that, they were required to submit an environmental assessment with their watershed protection plan, which concluded that there were no federally endangered species within the site. Next slide, please. So here we have the city's thoroughfare plan and the water wastewater map. I would note that Grant Harris Road to the north west of the site is identified as a thoroughfare on our transportation master plan, and so the developer would be required to incorporate that into their development at the time of platting. There is a separate process for amending the thoroughfare plan if that were to be removed. And then to the right of the slide, you'll see the city's water and wastewater map. One thing to note is that the site is in the CCN for Crystal Clear, which would be, so water would be provided by Crystal Clear and not the city. And just, I think this had come up in the Planning and Zoning Commission. So per data obtained from Crystal Clear's website, their water is sourced from the Edwards Aquifer, Lake Dunlap in New Braunfels, Corisco-Wilcox Aquifer, and the San Marcos River. Staff have not had any correspondence with Crystal Clear regarding this data center project. However, per the applicant, they intend to use a closed loop water system that can be accommodated by the amount of water that was previously agreed upon to serve the single-family subdivision. Next slide, please. So in their cover letter, and staff did receive very recently draft restrictive covenants, but in their cover letter, the applicant did state that they were amenable to certain restrictive covenants. They're proposing a prohibition on warehouse and distribution and waste-related services, which are typically allowed under light industrial zoning. And then if a data center is developed, water usage at the site would not exceed 235 LUEs, or living unit equivalents, or 75,000 gallons per day, which would be achieved through a closed loop system which recirculates the water to cool the servers. Drainage facilities would be designed and constructed so that the rate of runoff from a site after construction shall be 10% less than the runoff prior to construction for the 2, 10, 25, and 100-year storm frequencies. Next slide, please. And then impervious cover would be limited to 70% compared to the 80% by right that's allowed under light industrial zoning. The building would be LEED certified, and the sound at the property line shall not exceed 75 decibels. Please note that this is a correction from the 70 decibels, which I believe was submitted in the cover letter. For contrast, current city code limits noise to 80 decibels between 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. during the day, and then 75 decibels at night between 10 p.m. and 10 a.m. In addition, staff recently received a restrictive covenant draft, which did also receive reference worker protection provisions in accordance with state and federal law, and a statement that water quality facilities will be constructed that meet a total suspended solid TPSS removal requirement of at least 80% for this site. Next slide, please. So this is a timetable where we are. So it will go back to Planning and Zoning Commission for a public hearing and recommendation, along with that associated zoning change in January, and then it will come back to council for 2 public hearings. The first one is just a public hearing with no action, and then with second reading in March if it is approved. And then I'll hand over to Assistant City Manager Joe for some additional information.
All right, thank you, Julia. Next slide. And before we get into this, I did want to alert council of the fact that there is a hard copy of the draft restricted covenants at each of your places. So if you have any questions, you can look through that document, and certainly Julia and we have staff here to answer questions about those restrictive covenants. The following slides will address 4 primary topics of community discussion about this proposed data center, those being noise, water use, energy demand, and financial considerations. Next slide. And we'll start with noise. Next slide. To set the stage, this is a map of nearly 370 existing and planned data centers located in various cities and counties across Texas. As shown on this map, Over 180 locations are in the Dallas-Fort Worth market area, about 50 in the Houston market, nearly 50 in the San Antonio market, and 36 in the Austin area market. Next slide. The Austin-San Antonio region continues to face high data center service demand and low availability. You've heard public concerns raised about noise from data centers and some of the related health effects. The most frequently cited example is the Granbury, Texas data center, which has generated significant complaints, has become the poster child for data center noise problems. It is important to note that Granbury has an air-cooled facility which is not proposed here. Yet even water-cooled facilities can have noise issues, which I'll address in a second. Next slide. Closer to home, this is an existing data center complex located within the San Antonio city limits that includes CyrusOne data centers. These 4 data center buildings are located directly next to a single-family neighborhood and also adjacent to a school in the Westover Hills community in San Antonio. Through an open records request, staff learned that there were no noise complaints on record for this particular site. While no noise complaints were reported here, a similar data center in Chandler, Arizona was the subject of noise complaints. In that case, the city of Chandler worked with the company to add additional sound mitigation measures to address the noise. Cities have the ability to regulate and require mitigation strategies through restricted covenants, city ordinances, and legal enforcement if necessary. That is not the case in Texas counties. Next slide. It's also important to note that data centers can vary widely in their design, equipment layout, and cooling technologies. Here you can see structural walls built around outdoor equipment. As mentioned earlier in the presentation, restricted covenant conditions have been proposed by the applicant to address sound decibel limits. Next slide. The proposed site is directly adjacent to the Hayes Energy Plant, which is zoned heavy industrial and already produces some periodic noise. There are already restricted covenants in place on the Mayberry property to help protect potential new homeowners from noise from the power plant. Next slide. From a land use perspective, the question before council is whether it is more appropriate to place 470 single-family homes or a data center next to the power plant. While some may wish for a third alternative, and maybe there is in the future, the property is currently zoned and entitled for single-family homes. The decision being presented to you is whether to allow the requested industrial zoning. Next slide. Now we'll talk about water use and energy demand. Next slide. Historically, many data centers have used evaporative cooling systems which require significant amounts of water and lose much of it as steam. This project has committed to water usage limits by using a closed-loop, non-evaporative cooling or similar system. Next slide. The proposed data center's water allocation per the draft restricted covenant is limited to 75,000 gallons per day or 235 land use equivalents. By comparison, the currently zoned residential subdivision had more than twice this water contracted and allocated by the Crystal Clear Special Utility District. It is important to emphasize that these are allocated amounts. The actual water use is expected to be lower in both cases. Next slide. In a community meeting, company representatives at the time indicated actual daily usage as 4,000 to 7,000 gallons per building across 5 buildings. That equals 20,000 to 35,000 gallons per day. The 4,000 to 7,000 gallons per building number aligns with actual water use records from a data center located in the city of Round Rock. At a recent Capital Area Council of Governments committee meeting, the Round Rock Public Works Director said that their Saby data center building, a single building, uses an average of 5,479 gallons of water per day. By comparison, the 470 home subdivision would use at least twice as much water even under drought restrictions. So in practical terms, this proposed data center would use less water from our local water supply than the residential subdivision alternative. But this only speaks to water used on site. Next slide. Concerns have rightly been raised about the large power demands of the data center industry and the water used to generate that power across the state. ERCOT and transmission service providers such as LCRA manage grid connections by evaluating whether there is adequate generation and transmission capacity to a data center site. Data centers are placed in a queue for approval as power and transmission capacity or system upgrades are identified. The water used to generate power varies widely depending on the power source. Solar and wind power uses little to no water. Natural gas plants may be water-cooled, think cooling towers losing large amounts of water to evaporation, or air-cooled, like air-cooled gas turbines using no water. Because of this mix of power generation sources that changes even by the hour during the day, it is impossible to identify the actual source of water or calculate the exact amount of water that would be required to generate grid power for this facility or any other customer on the ERCOT grid. However, it is undeniable that power generation facilities across Texas use significant amount of water. It is one reason why some suggest this data center contract directly with the Hayes Energy Power Plant, which uses reclaimed wastewater from the city of San Marcos for cooling. Next slide. Now we'll talk financials. Next slide. As you saw during the budget adoption process, the city faces growing financial challenges due to state-imposed revenue caps, declining commercial and residential property values, declining sales tax revenue, increased costs from state mandates, and an increase in population to serve. Combined, these factors are projected to lead to budget shortfalls in the coming years. Next slide. Property tax revenues for a proposed data center project are generated from the land and the buildings, which typically increase in value over time, and the servers and other equipment housed inside. And that the servers and the equipment usually depreciate over several years, but are eventually replaced. This project anticipates a minimum investment of $1.5 billion on the 200-acre site. The chart here that you see includes a $500 million, $1 billion, and $1.5 billion tax revenue generation projection for the city, the school district, and Hayes County. So you can see the amounts that would be generated under a 1.5 and again $1 or $500 million investment. And this is using the new FY26 tax rates. Next slide. So to summarize, next slide. Due to limited server storage capacity and low vacancy rates for existing data centers in the Austin-San Antonio market, new data centers are being developed in this region to meet this demand, connecting to the same grid and using the same power sources and water. For a data center that is proposed to be built within the city limits, the city has the opportunity to regulate and limit on-site water use to achieve higher levels of flood and stormwater quality protection, the ability to regulate noise, and finally, the ability to capture tax revenue to fund city services for our residents. It needs to be noted, though, that whether a data center is built within the city, in the county, or somewhere in this region, every new data center that pulls power from the ERCOT grid continues to strain an already strained electric grid and will require large amounts of water to generate power somewhere in the state. That concludes my presentation.
Did you have anything else, Ms. Clary?
No, just a reminder that no action is required. It's really just discussion, informational presentation, and then we do have the applicant available in the room for questions also.
An opportunity for citizen comment. Okay, council. I have a feeling we're going to be discussing this in detail in the future because it will be on our agenda. I think you had it on a page.
February 3rd.
Yes. Okay.
I need some clarification though on certain things. When we talk about our presentation that is provided specifically slide, the one about the noise, let me pull it up. Geez, where did it go? I know it says somewhere in here that as far as measuring noise, it will be done at the property line. Am I correct? I'm struggling to
The
find.
title of it says restrictive covenants. And the noise
Okay,
is
that's
on-
where it is.
that's-
Okay.
If that's helpful to
Let
you.
me see. Okay, so it does say that though. I'm just struggling to find it. So I get that's what it says in the presentation, that it's reflective of the restrictive covenant. The language I read though doesn't say that explicitly. when we get into the establishment of restrictive covenant, Section 1, subsection G, if a data center is constructed on the property, then the noise level maximum set forth in section da-da-da-da-da of the Land Development Code as an effect of on the date hereof shall be 75 decibels. I pulled the Land Development Code. It does not explicitly say where that is to be measured. That was a question that was present last time, so do we have any clarification on where that is going to be measured?
So I'm not sure exactly where in the code it is referenced, whether or not it's in the Land Development Code or it's another section of the city's code, but my understanding is that historically when, not necessarily even just with respect to this development, but any noise complaint, it would be measured from the property line.
Okay, so I would really like to see that in writing, just getting these things out already. And question, I know when it came to the residential, the homes, a mortar wall was one of those things that, correct me if I'm wrong, was required when they were to build, if they were to build those homes. That was required in that whole deal, no?
Yes.
Okay. Is that the same energy that we're seeing here? Because I don't see it in the restrictive covenant. Is there a desire? Has this been discussed?
No, so those were, I guess that was to kind of, it was a separate issue because ultimately the masonry component of the previous restrictive covenants that came for the single family zoning were really to protect the future residents of that subdivision, whereas this is a little bit different. And when I say protect them from the Hayes Energy plant, that was the concern, whereas this is more going to be I guess, the noise producer as opposed to the noise recipient. And so I'm not sure if there's been any, there's not necessarily been any discussions regarding materials of this particular site.
Yeah, because I just got this too, shortly
same.
before this
Yeah.
meeting. I know you
Yeah.
attested to that, so there's that. I have a question for the applicant, though. So, Mr. Mayberry, the last time we talked, when you came forward, we had a company was no longer. Where are we on that?
So they're still out there. They're one of a number of potential builders.
So for the people watching,
Yeah,
when
Cyrus
we say
One.
there, okay.
Cyrus One, who came and made a presentation here several months ago. They're still out there as a potential builder, but frankly, the time of this process led their contract to expire. So any of these companies, they can't move forward until we resolve the zoning issue. And that's part of the appeal and utility of the restrictive covenant, is that it makes sure that the universe is very narrow. People that can actually execute these things. Those that can't, they can't be a builder. So that's a long answer to your short question. Sorry.
Sure, yes. I think that yes. But I think the thing I remember the last time we talked was sort of how a restrictive covenant would work without consulting the potential person the potential company who's going to be occupying the building and their operations. So when constructing this restrictive covenant, is this different from the one that was presented to us last time around?
I think I'll defer to Michael, who's drafted it, but I think it's enhanced, and we're willing to bind the property because those are the commitments we've made.
So I would ask for a redlined document when you say those
Sure.
enhancements, if we can get that prior to the next meeting when we discuss this.
Sure.
And then, let's see. I was watching the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting and was happy to see all the great line of questioning from the commissioners in that meeting. I think one of the things, though, that sort of was a bounce around answer, indirect, didn't really get at it, was the question of will rates rise?
No. Yeah.
Can we just explicitly answer that? In your opinion, do you believe that rates will rise as a result of this data center?
There's two truths that I can say that I think that our expert was trying to answer. He answered it very complicated. I'll say it as succinctly as I can. Any upgrades that have to happen to the grid, any upgrades to transmission or to substations, that cost will be borne by the developer explicitly. The other truism, and I would ask Tyler Hjorth to weigh in on this, is that historically large industrial commercial loads that have predictable loads subsidize variable residential use. So Tyler, at the last council meeting back in August.
Mr. Mayberry, I will say, just to interrupt, I
Yeah.
would probably not feel comfortable invoking our city staff
Ah.
to be put into a position to respond.
Fair enough.
It just is kind of, awkward for them.
He gave a good explanation on the socializing of rates back in August that I think is more skilled than anything else that I would say beyond what I've already said.
I get the despondent nature of the people who have come here, given everything that's happened. I share it. I do. Quite frankly, I wasn't looking forward to this meeting for that very reason. I know you mentioned in your original citizen comments that this is something that will essentially be good for the city. Very subjective. I've talked to a lot of people about this, and they don't feel the same way. And I know that I get patronized or mansplained about the benefits of economic development on our local economy, as if that's not understood. But I have a real simple question because it's late. What's your understanding of what makes our grid unique?
What makes ERCOT unique?
What makes it unique?
My understanding is, and this is just my understanding as a semi-layman, is that it stands alone, the state of Texas.
Yes, we are not connected to the national grid, the only state that has chosen to do so, with I think parts of Oklahoma. Do you remember what happened in 2021?
I do.
Do you remember how many people died in that winter storm?
I know that people did die.
246 people that were accounted for, but over 100, they said over 700 were estimated. So when we talk about how the fact that we had an actual item that, I know you're not aware of this, but we had our financial report at our last meeting, and in that, when they talked about our bond rating in terms of utilities, we actually got a lower rating because of how unreliable ERCOT is. So even our bond attorneys can see what has been said on the state level, getting at the unreliability of this and how unsustainable this all is. So I just want to mention that for the sake of conversation, for the sake of the public watching, as to not think that this is a no harm done type of development. And I know you've sat here and been very respectful, and I appreciate that. We've had conversations aside of that, but I just think it's important for me to mention that already, and that's where sort of I'm leaning. But yeah, when it comes to restrictive covenant, red line document, identifying the enhanced or any revised versions from the previous one, I know I have a copy of the previous one, but would be much appreciated prior to our next conversation.
We can certainly do that.
Anything else? I know, I was just getting ready to call on him.
So I had some questions, kind of taking a step back, about the preferred scenario map amendment process itself. So I guess for staff. So first, many of the speakers tonight mentioned the absence of the potential end operator. So normally when a property owner or developer is requesting a preferred scenario map amendment, is it typical for the eventual commercial end user of the site to be formally involved or even identified as part of the process?
So it would be tied to the zoning, and I will say it is not typical. I say we probably see 50-50, I would, with zoning change requests. Sometimes developers will come in and they'll just say, we want a land use change. Usually they're getting it up for entitled. They might be selling it. Sometimes they have a specific development in mind, but they're not required to. So when we are discussing a zoning change, which is really ultimately what this is facilitating, we are looking at all of the options. So this developer has come forward and said, we want to do a data center. They could also have just not said anything. So we would kind of look at all of the zoning changes, all of the land uses that are allowed under this zoning district when considering the zoning change request as staff. But I would say it's probably kind of, in my experience, 50-50, whether or not there's a specific end user at the time of zoning change.
But it's not required. So the process itself is technically supposed to be limited to the land use designation itself and not any specific future end use tenant or operator.
No, there's nothing that the zoning would tie. The zoning would not tie the development to a particular end user.
So in
It's
other words,
just
an
the
end
use.
user not being here to answer questions shouldn't really affect whether or not we consider this. Right. And then, so my last question, so one of the speakers tonight mentioned that he agrees that multifamily housing may not be the best use of this property and suggested warehouses as an alternative. For clarification, would some type of discretionary action by the city, like tonight's preferred scenario map amendment, still be required to allow the development of warehouses on this site?
So they could do warehouse, they could have the light industrial use as a conditional use under CM zoning, which is not preferred in the current preferred scenario.
So it would still mandate action by the city?
It would still require additional action. Also, I will say, CM zoning, commercial zoning, has additional site layout requirements, so we don't require parking in front of the building, for example, which doesn't really make it conducive to a warehouse and distribution use. So it is feasible, but there'd probably be quite a few other loops they had to jump through to make that work.
Yeah. But either way, my point was they couldn't just build warehouses as it stands now. It would still take action from the city.
Yes,
to
right now they
change.
can only build basically single family with some civic
Okay,
uses.
cool, thank you.
Any other concerns? You make a good point, Mr. Gonzalez, and there's been more than once that I have reminded the council, and prior to that, been reminded of, don't pay attention to the pretty pictures. Does this zoning change make sense for this location? Because the folks, the folks that are proposing to be there, that could change. So, good point. Anybody else, anything? If not, we are moving on to item, Ms. Trevino, I think it's item 10.
Yes, ma'am. Discuss and consider appointment to fill a vacancy on the Human Services Advisory Board and provide direction to staff.
Okay, if someone has a nomination, if you would, if you'll put that name forward, and then what we will do is we will see what we're gonna do with the motion.
I have a
So,
suggestion.
I'm sorry, be recognized and turn on your microphone if you want to nominate someone, Mr. Scott.
Erica Rosa.
Okay, and Ms. Garza, did I hear you giving a name?
Raymond Best.
Okay. Oh, and Ms. Trevino, one of these folks, and I forget which one, is a nonprofit agency.
Yes, that's
What-
Erica with
That's what I was thinking. And so, could someone, maybe Mr. Gary, remind me of where we ended up with about if you're, have an association with an agency that's before the Human Services Advisory Board, can you just not vote on anything, in which case this is the only thing they do, so maybe that's not the best?
That's correct. There could be a conflict on funding that affects that agency.
So they can't vote on anything?
But it also depends, and I can't remember, are they a board member or are they an employee in this case?
This will be a board member.
Just be a board member.
Right.
And it's not the non-voting social worker, it's a board member.
Because I think there was a provision in our ethics code that says service on a nonprofit board does not in itself create an economic interest. So I
But
have to
in
look
this
at that.
particular case, it does.
Yeah, we've talked about this.
Yeah, I don't remember where we landed. Do you remember?
It certainly creates appearance issues, without a doubt.
Well, they can't vote on their own. My question
Right.
is, can they vote on any of the rest of them? Do y'all remember? Do you remember where we landed on that?
I
Could y'all
think
quit having
it
that conversation,
Landed
please?
on,
It-
it's, that just complicates
Where it's a
things.
problem on voting on the others is if that
Right, if
vote
you
on
vote
that
for
one
less for them, there could be
means
more
less
for you.
them. Yeah, so they could, yeah.
But
That's,
you're saying one is an entity? No, she belongs to, she works for one.
She's the executive, essentially the
It's
executive
her and her
director
husband.
of the organization.
that run the organization.
Yeah, that's all.
I don't
But
believe
is
they've
that a
applied.
paid position?
No, I don't believe so, and I
Uh-uh.
don't think they've applied. It's not to say that one
I- yeah,
application.
I have
might
not
be
seen
forced.
their name on an application up to this point.
I think
They're fairly new.
Yeah, they're probably maybe 1-2 years old.
Mhm.
And I know in the time that I've been here, in the last 2 cycles of HSAB, they haven't applied. but she is an unpaid, essentially one of 2 directors.
Mayor, Mayor, I did speak to Carol. She oversees the Human Services Advisory Board. And so she did reach out to Ms. Rosa, and she did inform. I explained to her, if she could tell me before she does, is that she would need to recuse herself from the discussion and voting on the allocation for that specific application only. She would also not score the application. And they've had an issue, something like this, like kind of years ago with another board member, and it worked fine. That's what she said.
Okay, but what Mr. Gary is saying is correct. And so I thought we had said that it's just that they couldn't vote on the whole thing.
Okay.
We need to know that. And probably whenever we have applications such as this, if you could remind us of that. So, you know, I mean, we could look at her as, gee, this is somebody who really, you know, been in the trenches. But she would need to know that, well, I was thinking that she wasn't gonna be able to vote at all.
Okay, can I share why I am nominating Mr. Best?
Jump in there, please, ma'am.
Cool, so, Mr. Best has experiencing in like accounting specifically for nonprofits. Yeah, and so he's not just like a CPA, but like specifically for accounting for nonprofits, and like, I believe it's like the
And that's a
Dallas
skill. That's a different
area.
skill.
Right, it's like a totally different,
Yep.
beast. I think a lot of us acknowledge that whenever we were having discussions on like what all, like how all we like frame the criteria and like the scoring stuff. So yeah, that's kind of why I think he could lend some valuable information or like insight to the group. Yeah, and I don't think his application like captured that, but I just wanted to share
It
that.
did not, so I'm glad that you provide, yeah, there used to just be one lady in town that could do the audits and stuff for the nonprofits, and then there were 2, and I guess maybe he's the guy now. There's not a lot of people with that knowledge.
I did want to, Mayor, go back to that provision I didn't have in front of me when you asked the question, so I just wanted to
And I'm
double
sorry
check.
to spring it on you now. I just,
No, and it's fine, we did discuss it a while back. So the ethics ordinance says, service by a city official, which would be an appointee, as an officer, director, advisor, or other participant in a nonprofit, educational, religious, charitable, fraternal, or civic organization does not create for that official an economic interest in the property of the organization. So the property would be, you know, grant funds and things of that nature. So it's kind of a strange provision because on the smell test level, it seems weird to have nonprofit members serving on a board, but it doesn't create an unauthorized conflict of interest. It's an appearance issue.
but we didn't look at that. We were just talking about HSAB. We did not go back and amend anything in the ethics ordinance. I thought we put something in somewhere else.
Specifically for HSAB.
But if I'm the chairman of the board of XYZ social service nonprofit, and I've got an application,
It says it does
Yeah.
not create an economic interest versus a paid employee of the nonprofit.
well,
There
yeah,
could
because
be-
that could be part of their salary.
Yeah.
Okay, we might need to revisit that. Okay, we have 2 names before us.
Mayor, before we move on, because I've been saying this like throughout the year, but we currently have an employee that works for a nonprofit that, so when we revisit that part, can we revisit also employees serving on the board?
Yeah, we need to look the whole thing.
Thank you.
Which board are you referring to?
HSAB, so Alessa Ramirez works for the Red Cross, but is serving on HSAB as a voting member.
It's something to visit in the future, just because, it's a good problem to have. That just means like we're getting more applications, so then we're running into more like
We have to make it
questions.
uniform.
So, yeah,
Yeah, I
think
would- I
we
would
can
also-
unpack that at another time.
I would also, when unpacking it, want to know like
And-
what the
and
actual.
this is not on our agenda to discuss as the merits of this particular thing
Are we
that I
giving some direction on what
introduced.
we just suggested, though?
Well, I'm going to make an agenda request
Okay.
to put this on, and then we can have this,
Because I thought
that
he just
discussion.
asked, can we talk about X? So are we at a point in giving direction on what to talk about? Because that's
No.
what that was.
No?
But since the three of y'all seem passionate about it, maybe y'all can get together and
Yes.
draft something for an agenda item.
Yeah, for a future meeting,
Sounds like fun.
correct? Mr. Gary?
Yeah, any two members can ask for a future agenda item.
No, I'm saying it's time to say, we're gonna put that on a future agenda and get back to what's on this agenda, correct? That's what I'm trying to get you to back me up on this. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have two names before us, Raymond Best and Erica Rosa. A lovely lady, and they are very, very, passionate, about what they do. Okay, I can't have a motion because we don't have one for one.
Right.
Yeah, do the roll.
Just do it, just go around the table, okay. If you would give a name to Ms. Trevino when she calls your name.
Okay, Ms. Rodriguez.
Bert, was that his last name? So
Best.
sorry.
Best.
Best.
Simply the best. I don't even know
Mr.
him like that.
Gonzalez, Ms. Garza,
Best.
Mayor Houston,
Best.
Mr. Scott,
Rosa.
who? Wilson?
Rosa.
That's her last name.
It's Rosa?
It might be Rosas.
Yes. it's
Oh,
Rosa.
sorry.
Okay.
Mr. Mendoza?
It actually is listed Rosa, but Erica Rosa.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lorenzo Gonzalez?
Mr. Best.
Okay, Mr. Bass is appointed.
Cool.
All right, and Ms. Trevino?
Oh,
Do
We
you
have
have
four
somebody?
for Mr. Best.
He got 4.
Okay. I have 11.
Yes. The city council will convene an executive session pursuant to section 551.087, the Texas Government Code Economic Development, to deliberate regarding possible incentives related to A, the Village at Posey Road Public Improvement District, and B, the Whisper South Public Improvement District.
As we always do, this was posted on our 3 o'clock and our 6 o'clock agendas. It's posted here in case we didn't finish, but hallelujah, we did. So we do not need to go into executive session at this time. Moving on to item 11.
Consider action by motion or provide direction to staff related to the city council's executive session deliberation under section 551.087 of the Texas Government Code Economic Development, to deliberate regarding possible incentives related to A, the Village at Posey Road Public Improvement District, and B, the Whisper South Public Improvement District.
Okay, we held both discussions and we referred each of those to our council PID committee for further study. And that concludes that. Next is question and answer for press and public. I don't see, are either of our other folks still online, Ms. Trino?
I do have Ana Juarez.
Okay,
I am-
let's see if she wants to speak again. Oh, that's right. Speak a question, that's what I meant to say. But thank you.
Okay, there she is.
I don't see, Ms. Lindsay on. And Mr. Mayberry has left. Okay, so, we will,
Mayor, she's,
I was gonna say, she's unmuted.
I think I'm on, can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay,
Do you have
yes.
a question for us, Ms. Juarez?
Yeah, I just wanted to see if you had any questions for me about anything that I can answer.
I don't believe we have now, but I think we know how to contact you, and thank you for your kind offer. It sounds like y'all got
Okay.
some things going on out there.
Yes, lots going on, and I'm sure I'll be in touch with the city, people in the city, in the next few months, over the next few months.
Thank you,
So
ma'am.
thank you very much.
All right, well, good night to you.
Good night. Bye-bye.
And that concludes our question and answer. Yes. State your name, and this is questions. We may or may not have answers at this point in time.
Awesome. I'm Zane Porterfield. I'm wondering if there's a precedence for in San Marcos when there is a development of high resource use, if there's a precedence for inviting in some kind of advisory council or panel of experts, because while it seems intuitively like this decision is like a simplified zoning decision, we also know that there is a very unique stress on our resources with this thing. So do we have advisory councils? Do we have expert panels or things like that when we make decisions like this?
We will look to our staff, and then sometimes we do need to look at others, such as you mentioned. What we're going to do in this particular case, I could not tell you right this minute, but we will determine that as we move forward through the process.
Would you like some resources on rates in particular, or to be connected with experts on rate cases?
You can send me whatever you want to send me, my dear.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Not seeing anyone else. There being no further business on our agenda for the evening, I will declare us adjourned at 9:21. Zane, do you need my email address?